Please, I'm begging you, Kevin. Go visit Elizabeth and see how she's doing.
Would you quiet down? I'm at a crucial point where I might actually become the manager. If this messes up my chance for promotion, what are you going to do about it? We could be stuck living like this forever.
I don't mind that at all. I was planning to start working part-time anyway, and that would let me think about what's next for Elizabeth. But Kevin just kept saying, "You don't understand anything." My sister-in-law, Sarah, then said to me, "Emily, doesn't that sound a bit off? We need more data to make such a definitive statement." So, what should I do? When I asked, the two of them looked stern. Sarah replied, "Regardless of the reason, if she's being given such unclear medication, we need to sort that out first." Got it. But what can I do? Then Sarah said,
Call an ambulance.
"An ambulance?"
Please, Emily, that's your job.
My brother David said that to emphasize his point to me.
While you do that, we'll look into this doctor.
Yeah, for my lovely niece, I won't rule out any means necessary.
My name is Emily. I'm 37. I live with my husband Kevin and our daughter Elizabeth. Kevin and I were colleagues and have been married for 13 years. With Elizabeth starting middle school this spring, I was thinking of working part-time and changing our lifestyle a bit. We thought we were living fairly peaceful days. Yes, up until very recently.
Mom, my leg hurts.
One day during the spring break, Elizabeth came back from outside and suddenly said that, "My goodness, what happened? Where does it hurt?"
My knee feels dull, heavy, and sore inside.
It's unusual for this normally stoic girl to say something like this. That meant we had to see a doctor, so we went to our local doctor at Smith Clinic. We've been going to Smith Clinic since we moved here after getting married, cared for by the previous doctor, Louis. Now, his daughter, Mary, has taken over and is looking after the health of our town. Our family is one of those she looks after. When Mary saw Elizabeth's condition, her expression turned grim. "Is something wrong?" She suggested, "Let's take an x-ray." Elizabeth looked at me anxiously. "It's okay," I reassured her as I sent her off. But Mary told us the result with a serious face. "This isn't good." "What do you mean by isn't good?"
Let's talk about that later. But
As I tilted my head, Dr. Mary firmly stated,
she needs to be hospitalized for a while.
She said it outright. And when Elizabeth was admitted, I was the only one called in, and she clearly stated,
Elizabeth has osteosarcoma. This is a type of childhood cancer.
"Osteosarcoma, childhood cancer." Both words chilled me to the bone. I remember reading about osteosarcoma in a comic once where the main character suffered from it. I hesitantly asked, "Could this possibly mean, that she might have to have her leg amputated or something like that?" In the comic, that's what the protagonist was told.
No, I don't think it's that severe, but if we leave it untreated, it could get really bad. So let's start the treatment early.
I could only trust Mary with her words. Once the word treatment was mentioned, there was nothing more I could say. And Kevin felt the same. When I first told Kevin about Elizabeth's illness, he said to me,
Well, that's tough. But don't worry, just leave it to Mary.
And then he went to bed early, as he had another busy day the next day. Honestly, our relationship as a couple isn't great. I often convince myself that maybe this is normal for most families. We've been married for 13 years. Since Elizabeth was born, I've been more of a mother than a wife, and I'm aware that Kevin doesn't really see me as a woman anymore. My gaining weight is probably one of the reasons, but that's something beyond my control. Now, we're more like a family that happens to have a child named Elizabeth than a couple. Still, when I heard our daughter was being hospitalized, I thought he could at least be a bit surprised or worried and show some appropriate reaction as a father. Meanwhile, Elizabeth was sad she couldn't attend the middle school entrance ceremony.
Mom, how long do I need to stay in the hospital?
I could only respond with, "Well, it might take a while." Honestly, that's all I can say.
It's so boring. I was looking forward to starting middle school, making new friends, and all that.
Hearing that really hurt me. Elizabeth was looking forward to joining a sports club and enjoying her middle school life. Yet, her middle school life stumbled right from the start.
By the way, Mom,
What is it?
Dad hardly ever comes to visit, does he? I can't even see my friends, and the only people I meet all day are you and Mary. It's so boring.
Elizabeth looked lonely as she said that. Indeed, that's true. Recently, she hasn't been able to meet anyone. If that's the case, we should let her friends visit her in the hospital, but they won't allow it. It's a critical time, they say, giving her therapeutic IVs and urging her to rest as much as possible, though not absolute rest. Is it really such a critical time? I wondered, but as a lay person, I wouldn't know. I kept asking Kevin, "Please, could you visit Elizabeth? She needs you." But the answer I get was this.
Sorry, but I'm really busy right now. I don't have time to deal with you.
"It's not about me. It's about Elizabeth." I argue back. If it were about me, maybe it would be okay to ignore it. But can you really just ignore your own daughter?
Would you quiet down? I'm at a crucial point where I might actually become the manager. If this messes up my chance for promotion, what are you going to do about it? We could be stuck living like this forever.
I don't mind that at all. I was planning to start working part-time anyway, and that would let me think about what's next for Elizabeth. But Kevin just said, "You don't understand anything." He then cut off the conversation. "You don't understand anything" has been a constant complaint from Kevin towards me. Come to think of it, he's always been like that. I've known Kevin since we were colleagues, but his demeanor changed subtly after he met my brother when we started considering marriage. I lost my parents in a car accident during high school. Since then, my older brother David, who's a bit older than me, has also acted as my guardian. By the way, David is a veteran nurse. It's been his longtime dream to be a strong male nurse who can handle the tough tasks that female nurses often find challenging, and he eagerly pursued this career. David's wife, my sister-in-law Sarah, is a bit older than him and a physician. They might seem like an unlikely couple from the outside, but I've always thought they were perfect for each other. And they seem truly happy, which is something I've always aspired to have. Since they're both workaholics and don't have children, they've always doted on Elizabeth since she was born. As I was thinking about my life with Kevin, I suddenly realized I hadn't told David and Sarah about Elizabeth's situation. What am I doing? I can't believe I forgot. Despite being overwhelmed by the sudden developments, I hadn't contacted them, even though they're always concerned about her. I hurriedly reached out to them, and they responded immediately. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" Sarah and David yelled through the tablet screen. "I'm sorry, I was just a bit overwhelmed."
Well, that's understandable, but pediatric cancer, osteosarcoma, is that clinic okay?
Sarah tilted her head as she asked me her question. "What do you mean?"
Well, was the diagnosis just based on an X-ray?
"Sorry, I'm not very knowledgeable about this." They glanced at each other. Realizing the conversation was getting too technical for me, a layperson, they seemed to forget that sometimes.
Sorry about that. So, what's being done now?
She's hospitalized and getting daily 4 treatments. They said it's a critical time. They looked at each other again, their expressions turning anxious.
Emily, doesn't that sound a bit off?
"What's off?"
Sorry, but just hearing that, it seems medically unsound.
I tilted my head, wondering if that's really the case.
Basing a diagnosis of pediatric cancer or osteosarcoma on just an X-ray is odd. What about blood tests, CT scans? You need various data to make such a diagnosis.
Yeah, my brother chimed in.
And to hospitalize her immediately for that treatment? That seems way off to me, too.
So, what should we do? I asked, and David's face turned stern.
You need to stop that treatment right away.
Right. You can't administer the right medication without a proper diagnosis. It's odd to do anything based on that alone.
I realized they might be right.
And if it really is pediatric cancer, thinking of treating it at your local clinic is just ridiculous.
It made sense when they put it that way.
There are quite a few general hospitals around here, right? Ours is one of them, but if they're classified as a pediatric hospital, they have to give appropriate treatment. So I think they have to take the baby to a general hospital first, rather than just treating them at the clinic.
Ah, that's right. Yes, that really is true. What was I thinking? It was the same when Elizabeth was born. We had to transport her to a major hospital because Smith Clinic wasn't equipped to handle it, following Lewis's advice. Thanks to that, both Elizabeth and I were saved. It's shameful that I had forgotten such a thing. So, what should I do?
Whatever the reason, if they're giving her some unclear medication, we need to sort that out first.
I understand. But what can I do? What can I possibly do? Then Sarah said,
Call an ambulance.
An ambulance?
Even from a small clinic like ours, it's common to send an ambulance to a major hospital if they can't handle it.
Please, Emily, that's your role.
David urged me.
In the meantime, we'll investigate this doctor.
The word investigate made me pause. What does that mean?
Right. For our dear niece, we won't choose our means.
She's like a daughter to us. How can we not help in such a situation?
Hearing this from David and Sarah, tears rolled down my cheeks unexpectedly. I'm sorry. Thank you so much.
It's okay. By the way, how is Kevin doing?
I tilted my head at Sarah's words. Well,
His own daughter is going through a crisis, and he isn't doing anything?
Kevin is at a critical point where he might become a manager, and he's overwhelmed. He hasn't even come to the hospital. The two exchanged looks, seeming to come to an understanding.
Anyway, you need to call 911 to get Elizabeth transferred to our hospital.
Understood. And I hurried to Smith Clinic and went to Elizabeth's room. But when I opened the door, I was confronted with the sight of Elizabeth looking utterly exhausted. What happened? As I reached for the nurse call button, I remembered our earlier conversation. Right, 911. I called from the hospital. Excuse me, this is Smith Clinic, but something is wrong with my daughter. There was confusion on the other side of the phone, wondering why I was calling from the clinic itself. Please, I beg you. Please, please. My desperate repetition seemed to convey the urgency. The ambulance arrived shortly after, and just as it arrived, another car pulled up. It was Sarah's. From the hospital window, I saw the ambulance pull up to the front of Smith Clinic, its sirens fading. Paramedics emerged from the ambulance. I waved frantically from the window. Over here! Over here! Responding to my signal, the paramedics started towards the hospital.
What is this? What in the world?
A nurse from the clinic rushed out. Following her, Sarah, still in her lab coat, hurried towards us.
It's an emergency.
She rushed into her room as she said that. Sarah, it's Elizabeth.
Emily, how's Elizabeth?
Sarah immediately went to Elizabeth's side, and upon seeing the forebag, her face filled with shock. She quickly removed the injection needle from Elizabeth's arm, checked her pulse, eyes, and various other signs, and briefly explained the situation to the paramedics.
Understood. This is serious. We need to hurry.
The paramedics nodded and placed Elizabeth on the stretcher. Then, hearing the commotion, Mary rushed into the room.
What are you doing? Why is there an ambulance here? And why Elizabeth? Who are you? How can you do this without my consent, her primary physician?
Mary blurted those words out all at once, and then glared sharply at both me and Sarah. Not to be outdone, Sarah glared back at her and declared,
I am this woman's, Emily's, sister-in-law and Elizabeth's aunt. I am also a doctor at Central Hospital.
At these words, Mary visibly shook.
The symptoms Elizabeth is showing now are clearly due to an overdose from this drip. What were you thinking administering such a thing?
Mary's complexion changed upon seeing the forebag in Sarah's hand. What's going on here? I asked Sarah about it.
Well, the fact that Elizabeth is showing these symptoms now gives us a pretty good idea. Let's head to Central Hospital right away.
Yes.
And you?
Sarah pointed sharply at Mary.
I have some serious questions for you later. Be prepared. You've put my niece in this condition.
We could hear Mary clicking her tongue. It was the first time I had seen her show such an attitude. Sarah urged, let's go quickly. And so I quickly moved to leave the place with everyone. But as I passed by Mary, I definitely heard her mutter.
All this support, yet you can't do anything yourself.
It was a low, resentful voice. She thought that about me.
Let's go.
Urged by Sarah, I boarded the ambulance. Soon after arriving at the emergency department of Central Hospital, Elizabeth was immediately treated, and her lethargic state quickly improved.
Why was she given such a large dose of this?
Both the paramedics and the doctors were astonished upon seeing the forebag that had been brought in. It was a fluid used during treatment, but not meant to be administered all day long.
Admitted right away and continuously given this? So she wasn't hospitalized to get better, but to get worse.
Such direct expressions of astonishment came from the mouths of the surrounding doctors, and I was surprised. Hey, so Mary did that. But why? She's supposed to look after Elizabeth. I explained that she had been hospitalized under suspicion of osteosarcoma, and so the hospital immediately performed various tests. But the doctor who conducted the CT scan turned pale instantly.
Osteosarcoma? That's ridiculous. This is just arthritis. Ridiculous? How could such a basic misdiagnosis happen?
The emergency room doctor was so angry. I was surprised. Is it that easy to tell the difference? No, even if it's that simple, it's impossible for a layperson to judge. Was Mary using that to deceive me? David then said, Anyway, for now, we have a private room available in our hospital, so let's keep a close eye on her until she recovers. Surprised, I said, A private room?
Don't worry. It's available now, and if it's about the cost, we will cover it.
I had some concerns, but nothing could replace Elizabeth's life. That night, I set up a side bed in the private room and stayed overnight. Thanks to the treatment, Elizabeth regained consciousness, but was frightened and wanted me to stay with her all the time. I myself, not knowing what might happen, had resolved to stay by her side throughout. Later that night, after Elizabeth had fallen asleep, I began to doze off when suddenly I heard footsteps in the hallway outside. I immediately woke up, but pretended to be asleep. Then I heard the door to the room quietly open. Someone was creeping closer.
After all the things I thought I could do for her,
It was Mary's voice.
now that it has come to this.
I heard the sound of rummaging through a bag. Then she pulled out a small bottle and a syringe. As I prepared to move, I strained my eyes to see what she was doing. Mary opened the bottle and drew some liquid into the syringe. She then reached for Elizabeth's arm, and I couldn't hold back any longer. "What are you doing?" I jumped up and lunged at her.
Whoa.
With that, the bottle and syringe rolled across the floor.
Oh, you're heavy. I can't breathe. Oh, you were awake?
It's not about whether I was awake.
Get off, you're too heavy.
My body weight, though not quite double, was perhaps 1.5 times that of Mary. Struggling, she couldn't move at all under my weight. Startled by the commotion, Elizabeth woke up and asked in surprise, why? What's happening?" I told her urgently. Elizabeth hit the nurse call button. "Okay." She pressed the nurse call repeatedly in a panic. Soon, footsteps approached from the nurse's station on this floor. The door opened and the lights came on.
What on earth is going on here?
It was my brother who spoke. Then, once again, I could hear Mary clicking her tongue.
Well done, Emily.
While saying this, my brother secured Mary's hands and feet with bands.
This should keep her immobilized for now.
He then picked up the drop medicine bottle, his expression distorting.
What were you planning to do with our niece's life?
His anger was palpable.
Because you took her away from my clinic, I thought I could find an easier and less painful way. Because of what you did, I had to act quickly.
Had to? What does that mean? Her vague words frightened me. My brother looked at me and said clearly,
Basically, this person, though a doctor, was after Elizabeth's life.
Suddenly, I felt like I couldn't breathe.
What were you trying to do to me, Mary?
Elizabeth was almost crying when she exclaimed that. Then there was the sound of the door opening again. Sarah entered, and it seemed someone else was behind her.
She came after all.
After all?
I thought if we did this, she would surely come herself. That's why I arranged for a private room. I didn't want to disturb the other patients.
With that, Sarah signaled to someone behind her to come in.
I rushed to get an answer, but it was incredibly simple, wasn't it, Kevin?
Yeah. I was confused as to why Kevin was here.
What's going on, David, Sarah? Calling me here at this hour.
Kevin, it's no use. Everything we did has been found out.
Mary, why are you here? And why are you in such a state?
It was then that Kevin seemed to notice Mary, who was restrained and on the floor, and he hurriedly spoke to her. "Kevin? Mary? Are you too close?" I shouted that when my brother shushed me. Right. Elizabeth is listening.
It's okay, Mom.
Elizabeth shouted.
I want to know everything. After all, I'm here, and all the pain of not being able to start middle school right away, it's all because of you and Mary, isn't it?
Elizabeth, you're really perceptive.
Sarah gently stroked Elizabeth's shoulders and back.
I'm already in middle school. It's better I understand these things. It's better to be told than to be kept in the dark. So please tell me, Mom.
I was at a loss and frustrated with myself for being so helpless. Sarah then confronted Mary with the medication she had picked up.
This is a muscle relaxant you brought, isn't it? If you had injected this concentration directly, it's obvious what would happen to this child.
Sarah's hands were gloved, surely to preserve evidence.
Your ride is here.
Then more visitors arrived in the room. It was really good that the room was spacious. The visitors, showing their police badges to Kevin and Mary, declared firmly,
I'm from the county police department. Dr. Mary, you are under arrest for the current offenses. Kevin, as an accomplice, you will accompany us.
Kevin reflexively tried to flee upon hearing this.
Hold on. You're not getting away.
David's strong hands grabbed Kevin's shoulder.
I've been acting as Emily's guardian since our parents died, thinking you would bring happiness to our family. But what is this? Your own child.
While holding back his shouting, Sarah invited another person in.
Well, it was really urgent, so we had to bring in a number of people quickly. But thanks to that, we figured it out. This man has been embezzling money from the company.
Embezzlement? I let out the word unintentionally, and Kevin averted his gaze.
Sorry, we're from a private investigator's office. We were asked to look into this urgently.
But Kevin said he was on the verge of becoming a manager. That's why he's been so busy and hasn't even stopped by the house or come to visit her in the hospital. The investigator continued matter-of-factly.
About that. It's the other way around. He was supposed to become a manager originally, but it was put on hold because he was suspected of embezzlement.
But he never said a word. I hadn't imagined it.
And to cover what he embezzled, he wanted the insurance money.
Insurance money?
This man had taken out a $200,000 life insurance policy on his daughter.
I couldn't immediately grasp the implications. So, Kevin, were you planning to use Elizabeth's life to cover your debts?
I had no choice. Otherwise, I would have been kicked out of the company.
What are you talking about? Involuntarily, I swung my hand at Kevin. With a smack, my large hand struck Kevin's cheek, and he fell to the ground.
Damn. You've really gotten big. That's why I lost interest in you.
That has nothing to do with this. So, you were distracted by the always beautiful Mary because I gained weight.
Yes. Ever since you gave birth, you just kept getting bigger and bigger.
I was at a loss for words. I wanted to stay slim too, but I got sick during my pregnancy. It couldn't be helped.
That's right. Emily got kidney issues during her pregnancy. Since then, it's been easier for her to gain weight. That's inevitable.
Sarah added supportively.
That's one thing. But it was during that time that Mary comforted me.
The officers present sighed in response.
Forget it. The main issue now is that this man tried to take his daughter's life. And you, sir, you asked her to do it. For now, we'll take these people into custody. I understand your anger, ma'am, but you wouldn't want to be charged with assault, would you?
I was taken aback.
We'll make sure you don't face any charges. It's going to be tough enough handling things for your daughter from here on.
Yes. Oh, but let me ask just one thing. Didn't you love Elizabeth? I asked Kevin.
I did at first. But as you kept gaining weight, I thought Elizabeth might end up the same, and I just didn't care anymore.
So, Dad, you thought of me that way? And then you just didn't want me anymore?
Elizabeth began to cry on the spot. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I hugged Elizabeth. It's because of me, isn't it?
No, it's not your fault, Mom. You always did what was best for me. I understand that even as a middle schooler. Dad is just blaming everything on you. I don't want to call him Dad anymore. Just do whatever you want.
That's probably for the best.
Sarah agreed with her.
And you were the head of Smith Clinic, right? A medical professional doing something like this, even though it was prevented, you can never return to this field again. Was he so important to you that you'd throw away your entire career over this?
You wouldn't understand.
Mary retorted bitterly.
I worked hard to take over the current hospital, but Kevin was the only one who saw me as a woman. Do you think you could understand that feeling?
There's no way I could. I'm not you.
I made an effort. Unlike you, I really tried to approach her.
David and Sarah nodded to each other. Mary groaned and then fainted on the spot. Sarah checked Mary's pulse and condition. She then said, "She's stable," and allowed the police to take her away. Then I turned to Kevin. "I'll have a lawyer handle the divorce papers. We don't matter to you anymore, right? If we don't matter, then let's never interact again. Oh, and I'll be taking alimony and child support for raising her, all in one lump sum." I never expected to be able to say such things so calmly. It must have been building up inside me. Kevin glared at me in frustration, but I was no longer going to lose to that. "Goodbye then," I said my parting words to Kevin. Afterwards, the two were arrested and eventually brought to trial. Due to the premeditated nature of the act and the execution of the intent to take a life, Kevin and Mary were sentenced to prison even though the crime was prevented. With Mary's arrest, Smith Clinic was forced to close. Even though Louis is already an elderly, he had to write referrals for current patients, which became a significant burden.
I'm truly sorry for what you've had to endure.
No, Mary has been a help to us for a long time. How did it come to this?
Perhaps I expected too much from her.
Louis murmured sadly. Though it was difficult to accept, Louis made sure to pay the compensation owed.
It's going to be tough for both of you from here on out. Since we're closing the clinic anyway, we'll make some money off the equipment sale.
That's what Louis told me. Kevin was also convicted. Though he was not the executioner but the instigator, he complained, "A prison sentence is too harsh." Unfortunately, under the law, instigation is considered complicity. He received a prison sentence. Initially, it was Kevin's idea, and without him, Mary would likely not have strayed. This case, being an attempted insurance murder of his daughter, made the local news. Being a victim myself, it became difficult to continue living in this area. During this time, Sarah and David suggested, "Why don't we move away?"
Actually, we were thinking of serving in rural healthcare for a while. I'm a doctor, and David is a nurse, so it's a perfect fit.
We were planning to move far away eventually, but the timing just never worked out. How about coming with us?
They invited me like that. Perhaps the scandal made it uncomfortable to stay at the hospital. Their offer reflected a kindness that didn't need to be explicitly stated. So I took them up on it. After a while, we moved to a distant state. Though it was a rural area, a shopping mall was just an hour's drive away. It turned out that this area had been without a successor to the local clinic, and there was no doctor for a while. Having a reliable place in town was significant, especially since not everyone can drive, particularly in areas with many elderly people. The loss of Smith Clinic, where Mary worked, was a significant blow to the community. Once my brother and his wife settled into the new clinic, I was hired to manage the office. Initially, they couldn't offer much salary due to my lack of experience, but that was fine. Having any job was a blessing, given my plans to start part-time work. With the addition of alimony and child support, I could comfortably raise my daughter. Elizabeth's health also returned, and she grew taller rapidly. It seems the arthritis was related to growing pains. How they exploited that. Now she's thriving in the sports clubs of this sparsely populated area. With my new family, I hope for a peaceful life ahead.
I only prepared enough food for our family.
What does that even mean? Marissa's words left me and Kenny in shock. We were invited to our grandchild's 3rd birthday party. So why was there a dollar coin on our seats?
Why is there a dollar here?
When I asked, Marissa gave a mean smile.
Buy whatever you want with that.
In that moment, we understood everything. It was clear this was her way of mocking us. Her smug look said it all, but we stayed silent. We won't stay silent any longer. No more financial support. My husband and I were on the same page. My name is Linda. I'm a full-time housewife in my late 40s. My husband, Kenny, is the same age, and we got married in our 20s. Kenny works as a pilot, and he's a captain now. I used to work as a flight attendant for the same airline, but after we got married, I decided to leave my job and focus on being a housewife. At the time, I had wanted to continue being a flight attendant, but balancing work and home life was too hard for me. Even though it was tough, I've ended up living a happy life. We have one son, Tyler. He works as a lawyer and is quite popular, appearing in the media often. He's moved out and now lives on his own. We are so proud of him. One day, Tyler called and said,
"I'm getting married."
Apparently, he had proposed to his longtime girlfriend. What? That's amazing.
We should meet her sometime.
Kenny and I were so excited, we couldn't help but cheer. Tyler was laughing on the other end of the phone too. He told us he'd talked to his fiancée, and they were planning a family lunch for us to meet. We happily agreed. And the plan was set for the next weekend at a chic cafe Tyler had reserved.
I figured bringing her straight to the house might be too much for a first meeting.
Kenny said, and I agreed. What kind of person did Tyler choose, considering he can be so thoughtful? We were sure she was wonderful. We couldn't wait to meet the woman. When the day arrived, we went to the cafe, and Tyler was already there with her. She smiled at us as we walked in. "Nice to meet you. I'm Tyler's mother."
And I'm his father. Nice to meet you.
We greeted her, and she gave a polite greeting. Glancing shyly at Tyler. She seemed a little bit shy. Sensing that, Tyler introduced her to us.
"This is Marissa. Her father's been working as a lawyer at my firm."
I'm Marissa. It's nice to meet you.
Though she was soft-spoken, she made sure to look us in the eyes. After the pleasant introductions, we all went inside the cafe. Marissa seemed quiet and reserved, but the atmosphere was comfortable. I think the meeting went smoothly overall. However, when Tyler and Kenny briefly left the table, Marissa asked me something unexpected.
What kind of work do you do, Laura?
I'm a full-time housewife. I quit my job when we got married. When I said that, she looked surprised.
What? So you've been living on just your husband's income?
That's right. I purposely didn't mention that I used to be a flight attendant. While that was a proud moment of my past, I wasn't about to brag about it.
Oh, that must be nice.
She said, with a smile. There was something off about that smile for just a moment, but then Kenny and Tyler returned, and the conversation moved on. By the way, Marissa, what kind of work do you do? As we were getting ready to leave, I asked Tyler privately.
She's working as her dad's secretary. She said she's still learning the ropes, though.
I see. If she's an apprentice legal secretary, she must be very smart and capable. Maybe to someone like her, a full-time housewife like me didn't seem very impressive. That's how the meeting ended, leaving me with a bit of a strange feeling.
Could you help us out with our living expenses?
Marissa said this to us about a week after the wedding and their honeymoon. She suddenly showed up at our house, and as soon as she sat down, that's what she asked. Tyler wasn't with her, and Kenny and I were completely caught off guard. Help with living expenses, what do you mean? When I asked, Marissa's face turned serious.
Tyler's salary alone isn't enough to live comfortably. I only make pocket money since I'm still an apprentice.
Tyler's earning a pretty decent salary, though. What's so hard about it?
Kenny had a point. Tyler might still be young, but he passed the bar exams while he was in college and became a lawyer in record time. He's been doing great and is already a trusted attorney. But apparently, even with his income, it wasn't enough for Marissa.
Maybe we're okay now, but once we have kids, we'll be in trouble. That's why I'm asking for help now, to start saving for the future.
Marissa said this with determination. I could understand her anxiety about the future. But isn't it something they could worry about once they actually had kids? I don't mind helping, but you could also start saving within Tyler's current salary before kids come along.
Exactly. There's no rush until after the kids are here.
When Kenny and I said that, Marissa seemed a bit thrown off for a second. But just for a second.
Well, I'm still anxious. With my own future uncertain, having an unstable marriage scares me.
She looked down with watery eyes, trembling. Could she be crying? Was she silently worried about the future, even to Tyler? With that thought, neither Kenny nor I could ask her anything further. And so, we reluctantly agreed to help Marissa out.
If Tyler gets a raise and Marissa becomes a competent secretary, things should stabilize.
I agreed with Kenny's words. Sure, Marissa might struggle at first, but she would figure it out in time. I convinced myself of that, but there was one thing Marissa said that bothered me.
I have a favor to ask. Could you keep this a secret from Tyler? I'll talk to him about it someday.
Kenny and I agreed to that request, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were deceiving Tyler. A year after we started helping Marissa, Tyler and Marissa welcomed their first child. We were thrilled to finally meet our long-awaited grandchild. But then, a problem arose. While Marissa called her parents to the hospital, she said she didn't want us to come.
Sorry, she's not feeling well and needs some space. I promise I'll let her see you after she's discharged.
Tyler, who called us, sounded genuinely apologetic as he said that. We understood and decided it was fine, looking forward to meeting our grandchild. In the end, we got to see our grandchild a month after the discharge. Tyler and Marissa came over to our house for a visit.
I can finally introduce you.
Tyler said with a smile, showing us the baby's face. The baby, a boy who looked just like Tyler, brought tears of joy to my eyes. He's so cute.
Absolutely.
Do you want to hold him for a bit?
As Kenny and I smiled, Tyler said that. But Marissa, standing next to him, glared at us with an annoyed look.
Don't you think it's time to head home? You said we had to leave soon since we're going to my parents' place.
I know, but can't we just enjoy a little longer?
Tyler replied, but Marissa quickly took the baby away from him.
Thanks for having us.
She said that with a straight face and walked out. It hadn't even been 10 minutes since they arrived. Tyler smiled sadly at us, looking a bit defeated.
Sorry, she's been pretty on edge lately.
Kenny and I exchanged glances. Realizing Marissa might be feeling overly sensitive after just having a baby. Though we had mixed feelings, we handed Tyler the gift for the newborn without complaining. By the way, while Tyler personally brought back the thank you gift, Marissa never contacted us again. From that point on, Marissa started avoiding contact with us. Tyler would come to visit with the baby, but for some reason, Marissa seemed reluctant, and their visits became less frequent. However, despite not wanting to meet, Marissa only reached out to me.
Please pick up some diapers, 'cause we're out.
She didn't even call. Instead, she texts a brief message. Reluctantly, I went shopping and rang the doorbell at their place, only to receive another message.
Please leave them at the front door.
Even though I was paying for the shopping, I didn't get a single word of thanks. I didn't expect gratitude, but at least I wanted to see the baby's face. How's the baby doing? I tried sending that, but there was no reply from Marissa. She completely ignored my messages and sent another request for shopping. It felt like I was being treated like a servant. Sure, I had told Tyler, let me know if you need anything, out of kindness to help them with their first time parenting. But with Marissa, it felt like she only saw me as a handy housekeeper. I continued to support Marissa. Every month, I deposited money into the account she specified for living expenses. Yet she never expressed gratitude, not even a simple email. Thinking it was pointless to contact Marissa, I reached out to Tyler once. I don't need to meet, but I'd like to see a picture of the baby. Soon after, I didn't hear from Tyler, but I received an email from Marissa.
Right now, parenting is overwhelming. I can't think about my in-laws.
I was shocked by her thoughtless response. I had been supporting Marissa out of concern for her future, yet here I was facing such cold treatment. With that kind of reaction, I could hardly find the motivation to help her anymore. Tyler did reply eventually, but his message showed he didn't know the situation at all.
I'm at work, so could you send that to Marissa?
If I told Tyler everything now, would we finally get to see the baby? I thought about it, but I didn't have the courage to follow through. As I felt frustrated and started to wonder if Marissa was really saving any money, I continued to send the monthly support. After that, Tyler would occasionally reach out and send baby pictures, but the days of not seeing the baby or Tyler continued. And then 3 years passed. I began to think I might never get to see the baby. Kenny and I had half given up, but one day I received a call from Tyler.
Marissa suggested we invite both sets of parents for a meal to celebrate our kid's birthday. Are you and Mom free?
We were surprised by Tyler's unexpected words. We never imagined Marissa would invite us. Kenny and I were genuinely happy. Of course, we'd love to join. It's been 3 years since I last saw the baby, so our grandson must be 3 years old now. It feels like he's grown up so fast, but I would be happy if we could celebrate together. What should I bring for the celebration?
Should I buy a popular toy? I need to check with Tyler too.
The two of us were excitedly planning for the day. Then came the day of the birthday party. My husband and I arrived at Tyler and Marissa's house as planned. With my heart racing, I pressed the doorbell.
It's open, so please come in.
I heard Marissa's voice, so I opened the front door. I had an idea of what to expect, but Marissa was not there to greet us. As we walked toward the living room, I saw Marissa leaning on the table, looking at her smartphone. "Thank you for having us." When I said that, Marissa slowly looked up and smiled brightly.
Thank you for coming. Your seats are over here.
However, at the designated seats, there were no dishes or glasses set up, let alone any food. While there were plenty of those items at the table for the grandson and Tyler, had they forgotten to prepare for us? Since Marissa showed no sign of moving, I took off my jacket and stood up. "Marissa, can I help you with the cooking?"
Huh, that's fine. It's already done. We just need to serve it.
Without even looking at me, Marissa waved her hand dismissively. At that moment, my husband and I finally noticed something odd. The house was unusually quiet. Tyler wasn't there, and I couldn't hear the grandson at all. We exchanged glances in surprise.
Marissa, where are Tyler and your son?
They're at the park right now. They might not be back for another 30 minutes.
I couldn't believe what Marissa was saying. She had to know we were coming today. After all, it was Tyler who called to invite us. Why aren't they home? It's already past the time we agreed on. I couldn't help but ask, and Marissa responded with a creepy smile.
I asked you to come earlier than planned. I wanted to have a proper talk with you.
A talk? I nervously asked, not understanding her true intentions.
Well, since it's you guys, I knew you wouldn't notice. I only prepared enough food for our family.
Marissa said that with a mocking tone. My husband and I couldn't hide our shock. What does that mean? Before I could ask again, my husband grabbed my arm. Then he pointed to the table. At the end of where Kenny was pointing, 4 quarters were left lying carelessly. And it was on the seat that was assigned to us.
Why are there quarters here?
When I asked, Marissa shot me a nasty smile.
If you want to eat so badly together, just use them to buy whatever you like.
The moment we saw her expression, we understood everything. This had to be Marissa's way of messing with us. I couldn't help but glare at Marissa's smug face. So, does this mean we're not family?
Of course, you're just Tyler's parents, and to me, you're complete strangers with no blood connection.
Kenny and I listened in silence. I felt an anger and sadness I had never experienced before, but more than that, I felt an overwhelming sense of emptiness. Even though I hadn't seen Tyler and the grandson in a while, I had thought it was okay as long as the whole family was healthy. But after being treated like this by Marissa, I could no longer maintain such a calm mindset. Our hearts were not so big that we could just stay quiet. It's time to stop the financial support.
So, we can stop the financial support now, right?
When Kenny confirmed this, Marissa glared at us.
Stop the financial support? That goes against our agreement.
But if you're saying we're not family, I can't send money to a stranger. I think it's better if we just don't involve ourselves with each other. When I retorted, Marissa clicked her tongue in annoyance.
Kenny is one thing, but Linda, you're just a stay-at-home mom, right? How can you talk to someone like me, a lawyer's secretary, like that?
What? I couldn't believe what I was hearing from Marissa.
What are you talking about?
Isn't it true? Just doing housework at home is something anyone can do. I really don't want to hear opinions from someone like that.
With her casual insults, both Kenny and I were left speechless. The discomfort I felt during our first dinner together was because of this. She probably looks down on me quite a bit. Yet, despite looking down on me, the fact that she was still asking for money seemed contradictory.
I should mention, though, the help you guys provide isn't even a significant amount. You should be grateful I didn't complain.
Marissa unleashed her selfish claims as if a dam had burst. So it wasn't a significant amount, so you didn't let me see our grandson. I couldn't help but snap back, and Marissa's lips curled into a creepy smile.
Did you finally get it? Now get out of here already.
Marissa shouted this loudly. Then she leaned in closer to us.
I'll let them know you two had other plans and couldn't make it. So feel free to leave. I only want to celebrate with family.
Without hiding her ugly true nature, Marissa said this with a malicious grin. Kenny and I were left speechless by Marissa's outrageous words. We never expected her to be so twisted and so openly trying to exclude us. We didn't argue any further and left the scene, following Marissa's lead.
I can't hold back anymore. I need to tell Tyler the truth.
Yeah, and I feel sorry for the grandson, but let's take advantage of the timing when the other parents are coming. Until now, we had been sending money thinking it was for the best, but we had reached our limit. Since Marissa was the secretary to her own father, she likely felt superior and behaved arrogantly. But I wasn't the type to just stay quiet. I quickly took out my smartphone and called Tyler. At the same time, Kenny called someone else.
Hello, Mom, what's up?
Tyler, there's something I've been keeping quiet about. When I said that, Tyler seemed to sense something just from my voice, and asked,
Is something wrong?
I told him to bring Marissa over to our house. Then Tyler said he'd be right there. 20 minutes later, just as promised, Tyler showed up at our house with Marissa. Not just Marissa. It seemed her father had come along too.
I left our son with Marissa's mother. Don't worry, it was just before the birthday party was about to start.
Tyler whispered that to me. For now, we let everyone in. Marissa was clearly in a bad mood, but her father looked pale and was shaking. It was probably because Kenny had explained the situation to him earlier. I took a moment to recount all the financial support we had given to Marissa and all the mistreatment we had endured over the past 3 years. Marissa seemed desperate to keep it a secret, as she shouted to interrupt me every time I spoke.
She is lying. She's trying to make me look like the bad guy.
However, Tyler and Marissa's father managed to keep her in check.
I was told by Marissa that she'd send the pictures of the kid herself.
Tyler said, his face turning pale after hearing everything.
I've only received pictures of the grandson once a year, and whenever I ask Tyler, Marissa sends snarky comments to Linda.
What's that about?
Tyler was left speechless, which was understandable. He had probably been working hard, with hardly any time off. And if Marissa had offered to be our contact, Tyler wouldn't have tried to send anything. We were stunned by how cunning Marissa's schemes were.
I sincerely apologize for my daughter's behavior.
In the midst of all this, Marissa's father apologized deeply. And with a face that looked like he was about to cry, he said,
I'm so sorry for causing trouble for Kenny and Linda like this.
Marissa gasped when she heard that.
Dad, why are you sucking up to them so much?
These folks are my respected ones. You should apologize too.
Marissa's father said this while pushing down Marissa's head, urging her to apologize.
Why do I have to apologize? Linda is just a stay-at-home mom, and there's nothing respectable about that.
What are you talking about? Kenny was our ace when I was still working as a pilot, and Linda was an admirable flight attendant. They made way more money than you ever could.
Upon hearing the truth from her own father, Marissa's face turned pale.
Dad, were you a pilot?
But for certain reasons, I gave up being a pilot and aimed to become a lawyer. Kenny is still active, but I looked up to both him and Linda.
Marissa's father was a younger pilot to Kenny. I had flown with him a few times and, of course, had conversations with him. However, at the time of Tyler and Marissa's wedding, he asked us,
Please don't tell my daughter that I was a pilot.
The reason was probably related to why he had quit being a pilot. He had gotten sick just a year after becoming a pilot and ended up resigning. His health issues were symptoms of severe stress-induced stomach pain, and it was determined that continuing as a pilot would be difficult. However, he didn't give up and studied hard to become a lawyer, successfully achieving his dream. Kenny and I agreed to keep the understanding that we both knew each other's faces. I wondered if this would help Marissa understand a bit better. As I thought this and glanced at Marissa, she suddenly said,
But if she was an admirable flight attendant, shouldn't she have saved up a bit more? Yet she only gave me pocket change.
Could she really be saying that? I was taken aback by her words. After everything said around her, how could she still say something like that? She really seemed to only care about her own interests. As I hesitated on how to respond, Tyler spoke up.
Hey, What's this about getting financial support? This is the first I'm hearing that you're getting money from my parents.
When Tyler glared at Marissa, she looked down, drenched in sweat, as if realizing she had messed up. But his anger wasn't subsiding.
If you're just living normally, my salary alone should be more than enough to get by, right?
Tyler said with a puzzled expression.
I want to save for the future.
Marissa made the same excuse she had given us, but Tyler wasn't buying it.
Well then, show me the bank statement right now.
He reached out to Marissa, urging her to show him the bank statement.
It's at home.
If the savings are in a joint account, you can check the balance on your smartphone, right? How much do you have saved up now? Or do you have another account?
Tyler asked with a smile.
Exactly. It's in another account.
Marissa easily flashed a smile in response.
Well then, let's go get it together.
Tyler replied clearly, still maintaining his smile. At first, she tried to dodge the issue, but realizing it was futile, she handed her smartphone over to Tyler.
Where's your savings?
After checking the balance, Tyler showed me the screen with a look of disbelief. Upon closer inspection, the amount displayed on the smartphone was only about $10. It seemed Marissa hadn't saved anything at all. Though she was trying to wriggle out of the situation, it was too late for any excuses. I didn't want to hear her words anymore. Since we're not family, Marissa will have to repay the full amount as a stranger. I'll send you a proper bill, so please take care of it. With a sigh, I said this, and Marissa's eyes went wide.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'll make sure to treat you all as family from now on. I'll introduce you to the kid and even cook for you, so please don't say that.
Enough. After everything you've done, who would want to be family with you? My wife has been tolerating this just because you were chosen by Tyler.
Marissa was trying to curry favor with me and Kenny, but Kenny rejected her attempts. Promises to introduce the grandkids or provide meals held no value to me at this point. Watching the whole scene unfold, Marissa's father turned pale and apologized.
I'm truly sorry. I will definitely make my daughter repay the money given as support.
That's impossible. Don't make decisions on your own.
Marissa was still barking, but her father and Tyler managed to stop her.
No matter how impossible it seems, you have no right to refuse. We need to find out how the original savings were spent too. Depending on how they were used, you understand, right?
Tyler, with a look I had never seen before, said this menacingly. 2 weeks later, Tyler decided to divorce Marissa. It turned out she had been financially supporting a host, quickly using up both her own earnings and the allowance from Tyler. A host? So you've been giving money to him since we got married?
Seems like she had been going to him even before marriage. But the money from you was also spent on beauty treatments, designer bags, and clothes. Apparently, it was to get compliments from her main host.
I felt dizzy hearing Tyler's words. I couldn't believe she had used the support money for such vanity. I truly couldn't understand what she was thinking. I heard Marissa had been acting like a host's girlfriend and was quite well known at the club. That's how she had convinced us to seek financial help. Her title as her father's legal secretary seemed just for show, as she had been leaving the child with her own mother during her maternity leave and repeatedly visiting the host. Tyler had grown tired of Marissa and decided to divorce her.
I've decided to take custody. It seems Marissa had been completely relying on her mom and hadn't been parenting at all.
Tyler said this while holding his 3-year-old son. Seeing Tyler lovingly holding his child made me feel like I could cry. I might finally be seeing the scenery I had longed to see.
I was so busy with work that I didn't notice any changes in Marissa, though.
I'm sorry we stayed quiet too. We only wanted to help you, but it ended up ruining everything. When I replied like this, Tyler shook his head as if to deny it.
I liked Marissa, but I thought there was no way I could live with someone who looks down on family.
The moment I heard those words, I couldn't hold back my tears. I couldn't stop the tears mixed with anxiety and relief. Tyler and Marissa got divorced, but there were still things to take care of. My husband and I demanded repayment from Marissa for the money we had sent her over the years. Of course, this was not a legal process, but we approached Marissa's family instead. Marissa hesitated, but her father immediately agreed to the payment. Tyler also claimed compensation for Marissa's extravagant spending. Since her father quickly agreed to this as well, Marissa had no choice but to pay. It seems Marissa had accumulated quite a bit of debt, as she repaid Tyler and us the money she had squandered all at once. After that, she was promptly disowned by her parents. Desperate, she moved in with the host she had been supporting, but the host, who had only been kind as part of his business, certainly wouldn't deal with a broke Marissa. She was quickly discarded and ended up wandering without a place to stay. Now, she seems to be selling off all the designer items she bought in bulk and juggling several part-time jobs to make ends meet. I learned all this from the messages Marissa sent to Tyler. Marissa broke in by a life completely opposite to what she was used to, called Tyler, saying she didn't want the divorce after all. However, Tyler never answered, and eventually, he blocked her calls. It seems he also blocked her messages, so Marissa probably has no way to reach him anymore. To completely cut ties with Marissa, he decided not to ask for child support. It's clear that she can't live a normal life, likely to repay all the money she has squandered. But that's no longer our concern. Tyler started living with us. He moved into a spacious house to match our living arrangement. Since Marissa knew about the old house, Tyler suggested us to take the plunge and move. Thanks to that, we can now live without fear of Marissa. Our little grandson now goes to preschool and has made many friends. We are doing our best to help with raising our grandson. Tyler makes time to be with his son, but he sometimes has to work overtime or on weekends. So, I go to pick up our grandson from preschool.
I'm going to draw a picture with Grandpa and Grandma next time. Can't wait to show you.
Our grandson smiled and told me that. Even now, Marissa's parents still see our grandson, and it seems the child understands both sets of grandparents well. We want to continue to warmly watch over our grandson's growth as both families. Tyler, having just divorced, often says he's done with marriage. For now, he continues to work as a lawyer while raising his child and hopes to become independent one day. Improving his skills while raising a child might not be easy, but I have complete faith that with Tyler's abilities, he can achieve his dream. By the way, it seems Marissa's father is still working hard at the law firm to make sure Marissa doesn't attack Tyler. If she does show up, he's apparently there to act as a bodyguard to send her away. He has done nothing wrong, so I hope he continues his work as a lawyer. Though Tyler's marriage caused some painful experiences, we have now regained our peaceful days. Recently, I've been thinking about working to improve my own skills. I can't let the younger folks outshine me. Thinking this way, I keep moving forward and doing my best today.
John lost his job when the company went under and became unemployed. I asked my uncle to put him in his company. A year later, I received a picture of John and his mistress, Natalie, along with a message on my phone.
I'm John's mistress. Can't wait to live together soon.
The next day, after leaving the message on read, I came home from my work to find most of our furniture gone. There was a note left on the kitchen board in John's handwriting.
I've moved in with Natalie.
I called John. Where are you now?
Do you want me to hire you?
A sickly sweet voice answered, probably Natalie.
If you're okay with being my housekeeper, I can give you my address.
Natalie seemed to be under a huge misconception. All right then, I guess we're getting divorced. Goodbye to my $7.80 an hour husband.
Say no more.
Oh, she really has no clue. Poor mistress. I told her I'd contact him once the divorce was ready, then hung up the phone. Just wait. I'll drag you from the height of happiness to the depths of despair soon. I'm Emily, a 50-year-old housewife. I work for my uncle's company. I met my husband, John, at a friend's gathering 20 years ago. I thought he was a wonderful person, and when he approached me as we were leaving, we started seeing each other after a few dates. John lost his dad in middle school, but his mom, Jane, comes from a wealthy family. He graduated from a prestigious university and works at a major company, so his attitude was always one of financial and emotional security. Perhaps because of this, John was always very attentive to me. He would meticulously prepare gifts, lavish dinners, hotels with beautiful night views, and even bouquets for anniversaries. I felt like a princess and was over the moon. When we decided to get married, I was thrilled at the thought of building our happy home with him. Little did I know I would soon regret it. It was easy to imagine Jane, who had lived alone with her son since his middle school days, interfering in our married life. But living in a nearby town, Jane never visited our apartment, nor did she rush us over the phone to visit her.
It seems she's busy with theater, traveling with friends, and concerts.
Hearing that, I was relieved. Soon after, I found out I was pregnant, and Jane and John were even happier than I was, and we savored the joy together. But it was around this time that dark clouds began to gather over our marriage. John started going out every weekend. Even while I was bedridden with morning sickness, he would nonchalantly go skiing, camping, or on trips, making me question his sanity. We're married now, yet you leave every weekend. Isn't that strange? When I complained, John tilted his head.
It's impossible to take pregnant Emily along. How about I invite some friends over, like 5 or 6 people each week?
John's face lit up.
That way you'll have fun too, Emily. We can have a barbecue, and everyone can bring their own beers and meats. It'll take your mind off things.
I was dumbfounded. Did he really say this, knowing I couldn't keep food down because of nausea? Of course not, I yelled, and John frowned in annoyance.
What's wrong with spending my own money to go out on weekends?
I'm not telling you not to go. I just want you to be considerate since you're no longer single. John looked even more exasperated.
That's your job, Emily.
What?
You should be more grateful for the comfortable life you have thanks to me. I work for us, so you should take better care of me. You're my wife after all,
he said arrogantly, dragging his suitcase out of the house. I listened to the sound of the car engine fading away and sank into the couch, feeling depressed. I understood John's point. But neglecting a pregnant wife to drink late with colleagues on weekdays and hang out with single friends every weekend, that's a different story. He hasn't let go of his bachelor mindset. Will he develop a sense of fatherhood when our child is born next year? I could only hope he would change. Eventually, a healthy baby boy was born. John and I named him Kyle, and he grew quickly. I had John tell Jane not to come to the maternity hospital so I could spend some quiet time in my room. However, the aftermath was intense. After I was discharged, Jane barged into my apartment multiple times with her friends. The first time was right after I had finally managed to put Kyle to sleep. The doorbell rang just as I sat down on the couch to rest, making my heart jump. Checking the front monitor, I saw Jane and a few older women. I reluctantly opened the door, and Jane and her friends stomped in, heading straight for the living room and rushing to the baby bed.
Oh, how adorable. Isn't he? He looks just like John.
Really? I don't see it. You're just saying that because you love your son. Oh, look, his eyes are open.
Kyle, who had been dozing off, scrunched up his face and began to cry loudly.
Emily, soothe him quickly. It's not good to let him cry too much. And by the way, I'll take some tea. Earl Grey and some pastries, please.
Suppressing my irritation, I picked Kyle up and soothed him. Jane and her friends crowded around me, poking Kyle's cheeks and patting his head like he was a pet.
How nice. I wish I had a grandchild soon.
I have 2 granddaughters. I'm telling my daughter-in-law she needs to have a boy next.
Hearing these conversations, Jane looked pleased with herself. Jane and her friends, who came like a storm, chatted and ate pastries, leaving crumbs all over before finally leaving. When I complained to John after he got home from work, he smiled for some reason.
Mom must have wanted to show off her grandson to her friends. It's cute, really.
I couldn't believe it. Listen, it's my 3rd day after discharge. I'm still dizzy and feeding Kyle every 2 hours while doing housework. His indifferent response annoyed me. It took me 2 hours to get Kyle back to sleep. Please tell Jane no more unannounced visits. John frowned visibly at my request.
Mom and her friends came to celebrate. You should be grateful, not complaining.
I was exasperated by how little John understood. I should have gone back to my parents' house, even if it meant taking a long flight and train ride. My parents live with my brother's family, who have young kids, so I didn't want to burden them. John, you don't help with childcare at all, so you don't understand. Please take care of Kyle sometimes. I pleaded earnestly. Like on weekends, watch Kyle for an hour so I can go to the salon or relax at a cafe.
You just want to slack off as a mom.
John laughed, seemingly amused.
Every mom takes care of their kids on their own. If you can't do it, you're a failure as a mother.
That's terrible. Don't say that.
It's the truth.
John snapped, glaring at me.
How can you ask me to ruin my precious day off? I'm the one feeding you and our kid. That should be enough. If you want to be pampered, go back to your parent house. And don't come back.
John threw these cold words at me before heading to the bathroom. As I wiped my eyes, Kyle seemed to sense my mood and started fussing. Holding and soothing Kyle, I felt my spirits sink. How could someone so kind change so drastically? Or is this his true nature? Eventually, I began to think that, in some ways, Jane was better than John. She showed interest in Kyle, played with him, and talked to him. John, on the other hand, was strangely indifferent to Kyle. After much persistence on my part, he started bathing Kyle on weekends, but did nothing else. Even when in the same room, John was engrossed in cell phone games, shooing Kyle away when he crawled over. He was completely indifferent, no matter how cute Kyle's laughter was or how he babbled. Will he ever act like a father? Childcare had just begun, but I felt crushed by anxiety. Despite Jane's numerous visits with her different friends, she stopped when Kyle turned 3. As Kyle developed a personality and started expressing opinions, he apparently became less cute to her. After enjoying a period of peace, I approached John. I'd like to start working again. There's a vacancy at a nearby daycare.
Why? My salary is enough.
John's displeasure was evident.
A wife should stay home and take care of her husband and kid.
I almost laughed at the outdated sentiment, but kept a submissive demeanor and pleaded. I want to save for Kyle's college fund. I'll work part-time, please.
Fine, but don't let the housework slip.
I'm planning to work at my uncle's company. John smirked.
Oh, using connections?
They need a female office worker.
Whatever. It's a small, unreliable company, but do your best.
His mocking tone irritated me, and I pursed my lips. Your company does business with them, you know?
Well, just make sure you don't cause any trouble for us.
I felt enraged by his arrogant remarks, especially coming from someone who was just a mid-level manager. I decided to work hard and save money, planning to divorce him someday. Secretly holding on to that thought, I worked diligently. As Kyle grew and I could manage housework better, I transitioned to full-time employment and threw myself even more into my work. One evening, John came home and walked into the dining room looking dejected. Welcome back. What's wrong?
My company is going under.
What?
They declared bankruptcy.
I quickly checked my phone and saw news articles about John's company. Stunned, I watched John look down with a troubled expression. There had been reports of declining performance, but I never expected this. What are you going to do?
I'll have to find another job.
John threw his work bag on the floor, sounding defeated. Panic began to set in. While we could manage on my salary, saving would be difficult. For now, I would have to dip into the secret divorce fund I had been saving and use it for Kyle's college fund. Even though John was bossy at home, he provided enough for our living expenses. So losing his income was a huge blow. I could only hope he'd find a new job before his unemployment benefits ran out. But John only diligently visited the job center for the first month. Soon, he settled into a lazy routine of staying up late and sleeping in. I was also frustrated that John kept all his unemployment benefits as his personal spending money, not contributing to the household. Watching him lie on the sofa playing mobiles games while I cooked and vacuumed made my anger flare up many times. Hey, shouldn't you start seriously looking for a job? You're almost 40. It'll be harder to get the job you want once you're over 40. I gently nudged, but John snapped back.
Shut up. I'm looking for a job on job sites.
But I've never seen you writing a resume.
I'm taking my time to choose a company that's worthy of me,
John said arrogantly.
Unlike you, I graduated from a top university. Working for a mediocre company would lower my standards. You don't understand because you're so incompetent.
Oh, is that so? We had countless exchanges like this, with no progress, and 10 years went by. Even when Kyle was studying for college entrance exams during his long breaks, John, unshaven and in sweatpants, was engrossed in games. I often thought about just abandoning him and getting a divorce. With his wealthy family, John would be fine living with Jane. But I felt it was too cruel to kick out an unemployed husband, so 10 years passed without taking that step. Finally losing patience, I decided to use my connections. I asked my uncle to hire John. Luckily, they needed someone for sales at the branch office in the next town, so it worked out perfectly. Hey, how about working at my uncle's company? One night, with a pounding heart, I brought it up to John. When I told them about your background, they said it would be a waste not to have you. Of course, it was a big lie, but predictably, John's pride took the bait.
Well, someone of my caliber wouldn't be easy to find for a small company. They must be desperate for me.
He looked somewhat pleased. Can I go ahead with it?
What should I do?
After a moment of pretending to consider, John's eyes were glued to my phone screen. Oh, this! It's from a new product exhibition.
Looks fun.
He muttered nostalgically.
All right, I'll work at your uncle's company.
Really? That's great.
But I want to work only 3 days a week since it's been a while. Also, I want to leave on time.
I was at a loss for words. Oh, well, as you know, our company has a full 2-day weekend policy. There's overtime at the end of the month and during busy periods. Special treatment would be difficult. John's eyes narrowed.
Hey, I'm getting back to work after a long time. It's like rehab for me. You want to push me into long hours right away? What if delicate me gets sick?
His words made me furious. I've been working full-time while balancing housework and childcare for the past 10 years, supporting you. But I swallowed my complaints, knowing it would be troublesome if he got upset. After consulting with my uncle, John finally ended his 10 years of unemployment as a low-paid part-time worker. Once John started working again, he quickly became more energetic. Seeing him clean-shaven and dressed in a suit made my heart swell. Though he had thinned hair and a changed physique, a bit of his youthful vigor returned. Maybe it wouldn't be long before he could work as vigorously as before. Then we could get him to contribute to the household expenses again. Feeling relieved, I suddenly wondered, It's fine that he works 3 days a week, but how does he spend the other 4 days? On his days off, when I come home from work, he's always out. He comes back late at night smelling of alcohol, so he might be going to bars. But how could he afford that on such a low salary? Sometimes there's even a woman's perfume on his clothes, which is suspicious. If it were a bar, the scent would likely be mixed, but it's always the same perfume. About a year after he started his new job, I received a photo and a message from an unknown number on my phone. It was a photo of a heavily made-up woman and John snuggled up in bed. The woman looked familiar, and then I remembered. It was Natalie Thompson, who had attended our company's product launch event.
I'm John's mistress. Can't wait to live together soon.
I was stunned, but not very shocked. My feelings for John had long since cooled. So he was cheating after all. I sighed. He must have found Natalie's details from the company's event photos and pursued a relationship with her. As I stared at the picture, anger started to build up. How could he do this after getting a job through my connection? I called John, but the phone rang endlessly, and he didn't read any of my angry messages. That night, John didn't come home. To make matters worse, he began skipping work without notice the next day. What are you thinking, neglecting work for your mistress? You're going to lose the job you just got. I sent this during my lunch break, but still no response. Feeling frustrated, I returned home to find the apartment strangely spacious. Looking around, I noticed much of our furniture was gone. The Scandinavian sofa set, wooden table, two-person dining table, stylish shelves, and chic TV stand. All things I bought with my salary. As I stood in shock, I saw a piece of paper in the middle of the room. It was written in round letters and John's handwriting.
John is mine now.
I moved to Natalie's place. Don't bother trying to bring me back.
Crushing the note, I called John again. The moment the call connected, I yelled, "What the hell are you thinking? Where are you?"
You're so upset. This is hilarious.
A sweet, mocking voice answered. It was probably Natalie.
You want me to hire you?
What?
If you're okay with being my maid, I can give you my address.
Her haughty tone almost made me laugh. Natalie seemed to be under a huge misunderstanding. All right then, I guess we're getting divorced. Goodbye to my $7.80 an hour husband.
Say no more.
Oh, she really has no clue. Poor thing. Suppressing my laughter, I spoke in a pitiful voice. I'd be lost if John left me. How am I supposed to live now? Natalie burst out laughing on the other end.
You're such a parasite. It's pathetic how a wife gets dumped by her husband.
It's hard, but I don't want to make John hate me more by arguing. Tell him I'll call once the divorce is ready.
You're so understanding. Bye then.
I clenched my teeth as I hung up the phone. Enough of them mocking me. Just watch. I'll drag them from the height of happiness to the depths of despair. I swore this in my heart. I confided in my uncle about the situation and got John fired, deciding to make them pay. I hired a private investigator to look into John and Natalie, and I did my own research as much as possible. 2 weeks later, I sent John a message. I want to talk about our divorce. Please come over with Natalie. Right on time, the two of them showed up, holding hands and grinning as if to flaunt their relationship. As I invited them into the living room, Natalie sneered.
Oh my, you haven't replaced the furniture yet? You must be really poor. Well, you were just a parasite living off John's big corporate job, so I guess it makes sense.
Excuse me? You stole our furniture and have the nerve to say that? I could report you to the police.
How rude. He just took the furniture he bought when he moved. As John told me, you're dumb.
Natalie's disdainful gaze shifted from me to John, who looked away uncomfortably. He's clearly putting on airs for Natalie. When we replaced the old furniture, John was unemployed and we relied solely on my salary. Who's the one with no brains, lying so blatantly? Cursing him inwardly, I turned to John. John, you feel the same way, right? You want to divorce me?
Yeah,
John nodded grimly.
I'm sick of taking care of an old, worn-out woman like you.
He spat out angrily.
Meeting Natalie made me realize it. The last 20 years of our marriage have been a mess, and it's all your fault.
I couldn't believe my ears. That's what I should be saying.
Being with you dragged me down. That's why I'm leaving you and starting over.
Then he extended his hand to me. What?
Alimony. After 20 years of you being a burden, I deserve compensation.
John leaned back arrogantly.
I'm generous, so I'll settle for $100,000. Come on, pay up. You can just give me your bank account details, and I'll withdraw it myself.
His condescending tone made me sad rather than angry. He's demanding money because he can't afford to live with Natalie on his current salary. For all his pride, he has no qualms about doing this. Fine. It must be expensive to live with 5 people.
Really? Are you serious?
After his eyes lit up, John tilted his head.
5 people?
Smiling, I explained to John. Yes, Natalie and her 3 kids, 9th grade, 6th grade, and 5 years old, right? They're all girls. Natalie's face was drained of color. John looked back and forth between Natalie and me, bewildered.
Wait, kids? I knew she was divorced, but I didn't know about any kids. Natalie, is this true?
Natalie remained silent, her mouth tightly shut. John's eyes widened in shock.
Seriously? No way.
He muttered, looking crestfallen. John must have cheated because Natalie told him she was childless despite being divorced. I pulled out the investigation report and photos from the envelope given by the detective and spread out pictures of Natalie with her children on the floor. Good luck with those tough years, John. I encouraged him with a hint of sarcasm. You declared you hated kids and dumped all the childcare on me, not even trying to bond with your own son. I really wonder if you can win over someone else's kids.
I'll be fine. They're all cute like Natalie, so I'm sure I'll grow to love them.
John forced a smile and held Natalie's hand. Natalie looked up, her face still showing anxiety. Just then, the doorbell rang, and Jane's voice came through the intercom. John stiffened.
Why is Mom here?
When I told her we were divorcing because of your affair, she insisted on coming. John looked like he was chewing on something bitter. When I opened the door, Jane pushed past me into the room. Her footsteps were heavy as she entered the living room and started yelling at Natalie.
You homewrecker.
Natalie's eyes widened. Then she quickly put on a smile and tried to charm Jane.
Jane, their marriage was already broken, so that's not really the right word.
No, you're wrong. The thief isn't his wife. It's you. You stole my precious son from me.
Jane pointed a finger at Natalie, spitting as she shouted.
A plain wife and a heavily made-up mistress with kids? John, you really don't know how to pick women.
John hung his head at the scolding.
And 3 daughters? You got tricked by some failure who can't even produce a son? You always get caught by trashy women without me around.
John raised his head and weakly protested.
Don't talk badly about Natalie, Mom. Her ex-husband was a loser. She'll give me a proper heir when we remarry, I promise. Right, Natalie?
Well, yes.
Jane glared at Natalie with hatred.
You think I believe that? If you remarry this mistress, you'll take Kyle. Then I might acknowledge it.
John looked troubled.
No, I don't want him. He's bad at online games and doesn't like me at all. He's not cute at all.
His selfish comment made me furious. He never played with Kyle when he was little, always pushing him away. This is the result. Jane, it's impossible for him to take Kyle. I couldn't help but interject.
Shut up, you. Stay out of this.
Kyle is 19 now. He's living in a dorm at college. He's very independent and plans to live on his own after graduation.
I won't let him do whatever he wants. He's our heir, so it's only right that he returns to his father's home after his parents' divorce.
Jane's eyes blazed. I've never heard of such nonsense. I grew increasingly angry at Jane's irrationality.
John.
Natalie, who had been silent, tugged timidly at John's sleeve.
What is it, Natalie?
John's dopey smile made me angry.
If it's your child, I'm sure they'd be cute. But the number of kids will increase to 4. Will we be okay financially?
Her reasonable concern was met with John's confident response.
Don't worry, Natalie. As I told you, my family is wealthy. Plus, I'm a manager at a big company, so I earn a lot. You'll be secure with me.
Natalie beamed at his words.
That's wonderful. Then I won't have to work at the bar anymore. It's been tough with my age.
You've had it rough, but now I'll take care of you.
John's pretentious words and his embrace of Natalie made me feel sick. I wondered if he ever felt guilty for lying so much. The guest I had invited seemed to feel the same way. Suddenly, the door separating the next room from the living room opened. It was a bit earlier than planned, but the timing couldn't be better.
Whoa!
John screamed at the sight of the sudden appearance. His eyes filled with fear, and he quickly turned his head away. The woman who opened the door looked at the bewildered Jane and Natalie and gave a polite smile.
Nice to meet you. I'm Stella Turner, daughter of the CEO of Turner Industries, where John worked 10 years ago.
What? That major corporation?
Natalie and Jane's eyes widened.
Thank you for your kind introduction. Wait a minute. Isn't that the company where my son currently works?
Yes, Jane. John, what's wrong?
John, who had been sitting confidently across from me, was now trembling violently. See, everything is coming out now. How do you plan to fix this? I couldn't help but smile as I covered my mouth with my hand. I had found it odd. That company didn't follow up at all on the reemployment of its former employees. When I recently rechecked the old newspaper articles, I found that most of the employees had been referred to affiliated companies or subcontractors. So I tracked down a former colleague of John's using an address I found in a letter and asked about the situation back then, and I discovered some shocking facts. John, you were fired just before the company went bankrupt. You were relentlessly pursuing Stella, an intern at the time, which infuriated the CEO. Natalie and Jane were stunned. What an idiot. A 40-year-old mid-level manager chasing a 20-year-old college student? Such overconfidence is laughable. When I let out a derisive laugh, Natalie looked at John with an expression that seemed to say she couldn't believe it.
John, were you really chasing after a college girl?
What's that look for? It's only natural for a man to go after young, rich women. Got a problem with that?
John's brazen attitude shocked Natalie and Jane.
Wait, mid-level manager?
So, John, where do you work now?
My uncle's company. He's an hourly employee making $7.80 an hour. After 10 years of unemployment, I had to push him to work. I explained the details to Natalie and Jane with a smile. I got him the job through my connections at my uncle's company. Even though he's supposed to work all weekdays, he insisted on only working 3 days a week, so I had to plead with my uncle. Jane let out a strange cry. It seemed John hadn't told her anything. Natalie, all the furniture you took was bought with my salary. At the time, John was unemployed, addicted to cell phone games, and had no savings.
No way.
Natalie muttered in shock.
John always said he was supporting his wife. He used to complain that my wife didn't appreciate me enough.
What a joke. I glared at John, who looked embarrassed, and unleashed my pent-up anger. While you were unemployed and lounging around, I worked hard, juggling housework and raising our child.
That's what women are supposed to do. Nothing to brag about.
John shouted back. And yet you always looked down on me, even after I got you a job at my uncle's company, and then you had an affair. How much more do you need to humiliate me?
Shut up. You're just a part-timer hired through connections, acting all high and mighty.
That's old news. I laughed softly.
That's the truth, right?
Too bad. I'm now the executive vice president. When I announced this with a smile, John froze.
What? Executive vice president?
That's right. And I make more than John did when he was a mid-level manager.
Don't lie. There's no way a third-rate college graduate like you could earn that much.
When I shoved my pay stub in his face, his expression twisted and he hung his head. Just then, Jane seemed to recover from her shock and put her arm around John's shoulder, hurling insults at me.
You're such an insolent wife, defying your husband like that. No wonder John got sick of you and found a mistress.
Ignoring her, tired of dealing with such nonsense, Jane turned to comfort John with a syrupy voice.
John, leave these people and come back to Mommy. I'll find you a proper wife. You can have more kids with someone else.
Yeah, I'll do that.
John looked apologetically at Natalie.
Sorry, Natalie. Mom doesn't approve, so we're done.
At his words, Natalie's face contorted in rage. She jumped up, red with fury.
Good riddance. I thought I'd marry you because you claim to be a manager at a big company, but you're just a liar.
She grabbed her designer bag, pulled out her phone, wallet, and makeup pouch, and threw the bag at John.
Why would I date a guy 15 years older otherwise? You're delusional if you think you're attractive.
Natalie.
Don't touch me.
She shoved his hand away and stormed out, shoulders heaving. Stella, who had watched the entire scene, bowed to me and left as well. Here's the divorce papers. Sign them and file them at the courthouse. If it's too much trouble, just send them back to me in the unclosed envelope. I handed the papers to John, who was frozen with tear-filled eyes, and addressed Jane. We'll handle the alimony through our lawyers. The discussion is over, so please take him with you.
We're leaving. Come on, John. We'll pack your things and pick them up later.
As I saw Jane supporting John out the door, I added one more thing. By the way, please take care of the $80,000 debt he racked up from our joint account. Jane blinked in confusion.
What?
He spent it on online gaming. Since he's unemployed again, I'll be sending the bill to you. I pushed the bewildered Jane and sniffling John out the door and locked it immediately. The next day, John sent back the signed divorce papers, and I submitted them right away. I expected John to argue about the alimony, but to my surprise, the full amount I demanded was deposited into my account. It seemed Jane had paid it to get rid of me quickly. All the furniture John had taken was returned in good condition, which was a relief. When I demanded alimony from Natalie, the amount was deposited into my account. Then, to my surprise, Natalie's mother brought her to my house. Prompted by her mother, Natalie bowed to me, though her face showed displeasure. Her mother was very apologetic, too. She covered the compensation and planned to make Natalie repay it by working extra jobs along with her bar job. It was a relief to know her parents were decent people. Although I thought John would get along well with his mom, their relationship turned sour. Back to being unemployed, John had no intention of finding a job and continued wasting Jane's savings and pension on online gaming.
He used to be so sweet, but his wife ruined him. If this continues, my savings will run out. I wish he'd move out soon.
Apparently, that's what Jane was telling the neighbors. Finally free of John, I felt a sense of clarity and peace in my daily life. I should have cut ties with him sooner if it felt liberating. When I called Kyle, who was in his college dorm, to tell him about our divorce, he responded cheerfully.
You finally did it. Congratulations.
He's still your dad, so you can visit him if you want.
No way. I don't need to see him. You're my only family, Mom.
I laughed at his firm words.
Now you can start your second life, Mom. Enjoy your work and personal life, and don't let anyone hold you back.
Yes, I will. Thank you. His encouraging words brought a smile to my face. From now on, I want to spend the rest of my life happily with Kyle.
Sorry, but you can't have kids. And on top of that, you couldn't even do fertility treatments for a while because of that car accident, right? To be blunt, you're useless to me now. I found someone younger and she's pregnant, so I'm marrying Kate.
I stared in shock at Thomas, who said this so casually. The smirk on his face was hideous. Then, his mom, Lisa, calmly uttered something horrifying.
We've got an heir now, so we don't need you anymore.
Next, Kate threw her words at me.
Hurry up and get divorced.
As I stood there, taking in their cruel words, I slowly began to speak. I can't get divorced, you know, because... As I said those words, Thomas's face turned pale. You haven't forgotten, right? The promise you made when we got married. Thomas visibly started to tremble. I won't let things go his way. I'm dragging all of them down to hell. I clenched my fist tighter. My name is Emily, and I'm a 37-year-old office worker. I live with my husband, Thomas, who is 5 years younger than me. We live in a rented apartment close to the subway. We have a peaceful life with no major problems. That's what I'd like to say, but there's one issue. It's about having kids. We've been married for 5 years, but we still don't have any children. They say babies are a gift, and even if we didn't have one, I'd be okay with that. At least, that's what I thought. But Thomas and Lisa felt differently. His parents run a construction business and expect him to take over one day. Of course, Thomas has been working there since he graduated, and he's expected to become the CEO eventually. Naturally, his parents hope that Thomas's child will take over the business after him. Because of this, Lisa always gave me a sharp look. She was anxious about my age, being 5 years older than Thomas. The issue of having kids soon became a major problem in our household, and this led to something terrible happening. I'm heading out now.
All right, take care.
As I left our house, I started walking toward the hospital. I was undergoing fertility treatment. Since we couldn't conceive naturally, I decided to visit the hospital, considering my age. The first method we tried was timing therapy, but it didn't work out. Next, we moved on to artificial insemination, and now we're at the stage of in vitro fertilization. I frequently visited the hospital to get injections of ovulation-inducing drugs. Honestly, I never thought it would be this hard. But quitting treatment wasn't an option. Thomas would talk excitedly about playing soccer with our future child, and Lisa kept a close eye on my treatment progress, considering the future of the business. Feeling the pressure from both of them, I convinced myself I have to get pregnant, no matter what. One day, it finally happened. I got pregnant.
Great job, Emily.
You did it, Emily. I'll start preparing for the baby right away.
They were over the moon. They called every relative and friend they could think of, turning it into a huge celebration. They even got into heated discussions about how to raise the child. Hey, we haven't even entered the safe period yet. Maybe you should calm down a bit. My words didn't reach either of them. They were discussing what to name the baby, as if I wasn't even there. I felt a growing sense of unease, like I was being left out all alone. A few weeks later, everything changed.
I'm sorry, but it looks like you've had a miscarriage this time.
What? The sudden pain in my abdomen had filled me with anxiety. I rushed to the hospital, only to be told the news bluntly by the doctor. I was so shocked that I couldn't move. The procedure was done quickly, and just like that, I lost my baby. As I left the hospital, a deep sense of loss began to well up inside me. At the same time, I thought about Thomas and Lisa. How could I possibly tell them? I hesitated, but I couldn't keep it a secret.
Welcome back. How did it go?
As soon as I walked in the door, Thomas greeted me cheerfully. Summoning all my courage, I spoke. The truth is, I had a miscarriage.
What?
Thomas looked at me with a puzzled expression. For a moment, I hoped he would comfort me. But his response was the exact opposite.
Why? I was so looking forward to this.
I couldn't believe my ears at his cruel words. Without even glancing at me, he quickly grabbed his phone and started dialing.
Hey, Mom. Emily had a miscarriage. Yeah, seriously, I can't believe it either.
I was stunned into silence, and a short time later, Lisa came over to our house.
Emily, is it true you had a miscarriage? Did you do something harmful to your body? Tell me the truth.
I didn't do anything like that. The doctor said miscarriages can happen even without a specific cause. I spoke nervously, shaken by Lisa's harsh questioning. But she just snorted in disgust.
Well, when I was pregnant with Thomas, I thought about the baby from morning till night and was extremely careful. That's why I had a successful delivery. The fact that you had a miscarriage means you weren't thinking about the baby enough. That must be it.
That's not true. Her cruel words left me speechless. I had been thinking about the baby every day. I never did anything reckless or unhealthy, of course. And yet, I still had a miscarriage. It wasn't something I could control. No matter how much I tried to explain, Thomas and Lisa wouldn't accept it. From then on, life became a living hell. It was clear that they had grown cold towards me.
Who knows when you'll get pregnant again?
Thomas started making these passive-aggressive remarks more and more, and Lisa would come over often just to throw jabs at me.
Did you hear? Thomas's cousin already has 3 kids, and here we are, with not even one. I guess having a younger wife would have been better.
At first, I tried to argue back, but eventually, I realized it was pointless. Nothing I said mattered anymore. They had completely made me out to be the bad guy. I lived each day with a heavy heart. I'm going to the hospital.
You better make it work this time. Seriously, I can't wait any longer to give Mom a grandkid, so don't mess this up again.
Thomas let out a loud, exaggerated sigh. Months passed, but nothing changed. Since then, the snide comments from Thomas and Lisa kept piercing my heart. Being blamed repeatedly, I had become entirely consumed by negative thoughts. Maybe it was my fault that I had a miscarriage. As I walked the usual route to the hospital, lost in those thoughts, it happened. A massive crash echoed around me. What? The moment I looked up, a powerful force hit my entire body. I lost consciousness immediately after. When I woke up next, I was in a place I didn't recognize.
Oh, you're awake.
Where am I? My whole body ached, and I couldn't move. While I was still in a daze, a person in a white coat approached and explained. Apparently, on my way to the hospital, I had been hit by a car whose driver wasn't paying attention. It was a major accident, and several other pedestrians were also involved. Among them, I had suffered the worst injuries. I was shocked to learn from the doctor that I had been in a coma for 3 days. Fortunately, or unfortunately, my memory of the incident was fuzzy after the impacts. My parents, who had been visiting, kept telling me with tear-filled eyes how worried they had been, so I must have been in pretty bad shape. After numerous tests, I was relieved to find out that none of my injuries were life-threatening. However, the doctor told me that without rehabilitation, I wouldn't regain full use of my body. As it turned out, the rehab took longer than expected, and I ended up staying in the hospital for 6 months. At first, I was in shock from the accident. But as time passed, I gradually calmed down. That's when I started to wonder about Thomas. He hadn't visited me even once. Luckily, my mom had been coming to take care of me, but it was strange that my husband hadn't shown up. Even when I informed him about the accident, his reaction was so nonchalant, and that was it.
That's rough. Well, good luck with your rehab.
Even though our relationship had been strained since the miscarriage, not visiting me after such a serious accident, what was I to Thomas? I was grappling with this emptiness when it happened.
Excuse me, but are you one of the people who got injured in that accident in the next town over?
Oh, yes. I was in the rehab room when a man approached me. He seemed a bit older than me, and he was using a cane.
I was involved in that accident too. It's such bad luck, isn't it? Just walking down the street, and then this happens. How's your recovery going?
The man looked at me with genuine concern. Now that I think about it, the doctor had mentioned that several people were caught up in the accident. It seemed like this man was one of them. I let my guard down and replied with a smile. Yes, I'm doing okay, thanks. They say if I keep working hard in rehab, I'll regain more movement, so I'm really pushing myself.
Same here. Let's work hard each other.
We talked a little more after that. His name was James. He was 42 years old, 5 years older than me, and was staying in the room across from mine. James had lost his wife a few years ago, and now he lived alone.
Since there's no one to take care of me, I have to manage everything on my own. Plus, I've been off work for a while, so I really need to get back soon.
James spoke with a smile, revealing just how kind-hearted he was. We often ran into each other in the rehab room, and he always showed concern for my well-being. He encouraged me whenever I felt down. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that James was the reason I managed to stay positive. Soon, James no longer needed his cane. Since his injuries were less severe than mine, he recovered faster. He would likely be discharged soon. I couldn't help but feel a bit lonely at the thought. One day,
Thomas hasn't been around much, has he?
my mom, who was visiting me in the hospital, commented casually, "He's just busy with work." I replied without meeting her eyes. In truth, I had reached out to Thomas several times through texts and calls, but he either ignored them or sent back brief, curt replies. There was never any mention of visiting me at the hospital. Sure, we had been in a Cold War since the miscarriage, but for him not to show up even once after such a serious accident, it was too strange. His wife was in a coma for 3 days after an accident, and yet he didn't visit. How heartless could he be? Had he completely detached himself emotionally? Naturally, our fertility treatments had also come to a halt. I felt a sense of urgency, but at the same time, I began to question things. Did I really want to have a child? I used to think that if we had a baby, it would make Thomas and Lisa happy. But now, it felt like my own desires were being left behind. Should I even consider restarting the treatment? As I wrestled with these doubts, time continued to pass. Then, a few weeks later, James was set to be discharged before me and came to my room to say goodbye. Congratulations on your discharge.
Thank you. You'll be out soon too, Emily. Your recovery is going really well.
James looked a bit reluctant to leave. A silence settled between us for a moment. James seemed like he had something to say. Finally, after gathering his thoughts, he spoke up.
Well, I've been debating whether or not I should say this, but I think it's something you should know.
What is it? I asked, meeting his gaze. James looked serious. Then, he revealed something that completely shocked me. A few weeks later, my recovery was progressing well. I was cleared for discharge, with only a weekly checkup required moving forward. Fortunately, there were hardly any lasting effects from the accident. While I felt relieved, my mind was consumed by what James had told me.
Are you okay?
Yeah. My mom insisted on accompanying me back to my apartment, clearly worried. It wasn't just about my physical condition. It was because of what James had told me. I had shared it with her, which only added to her concern. I felt bad for causing her more worry, but I couldn't keep it to myself any longer. My fate would drastically change after the conversation that was about to take place. My mom and I took a taxi and got off in front of the apartment. It had been 6 months since I last came home. When I opened the door of my house, I heard women's voices. A bad feeling crept over me as I opened the door to the living room. I'm home. There they were, Thomas, Lisa, and a young woman, chatting away.
Oh, you're back.
Thomas said, noticing me and smiling. Lisa and the young woman gave me a quick glance. I looked around the living room and saw that my belongings had been neatly packed and placed in a corner. "What's this?" I muttered, and Thomas responded casually.
Oh, that. I packed up your stuff. Sorry you just got back, but could you move out now?
What?
Sorry, but my girlfriend's pregnant.
Thomas said this as he gazed at the young woman sitting beside him. The woman greeted me with a triumphant smile.
Nice to meet you. I'm Kate.
She then lovingly patted her belly. I stood there in shock, as did my mom.
Sorry, but you can't have kids, and you couldn't even do fertility treatments for a while because of the accident, right? To be blunt, you're useless to me now. Kate's young and pregnant, so I'm marrying her.
I stared in disbelief at Thomas, who said all this so nonchalantly. The smirk on his face was unbearably repulsive. My mom was so stunned that she couldn't even form words. Then Lisa, as calmly as ever, said something terrifying.
We've got an heir now, so we don't need you anymore.
Kate also chimed in, spitting out her words.
Hurry up and get divorced.
Unable to bear the situation any longer, my mom finally spoke up.
What's wrong with you people?
I stopped her with my hand. I already knew that Thomas had a mistress, but I had planned to talk things over with him calmly after I was discharged. I never imagined he would actually bring her into our home. I was shocked to realize just how inhumane he had become. I slowly began to speak. I can't get divorced, because... I paused for a moment. Because of that promise, remember? Thomas frowned in confusion.
What?
Did you forget? The promise we made when we got married? As the memory finally dawned on him, Thomas's face turned pale.
You can't bring that up now. Besides, promises don't matter anymore. I've already got the divorce papers ready. I'll just file them myself.
Thomas waved the divorce papers in the air. Not only had he signed his part, but somehow my part was filled out as well. Someone must have forged my signature. But I wasn't going to back down. You can't just do that. I've already filed a notice to prevent the divorce from being processed.
What?
Thomas looked utterly dumbfounded. I know all about your little scheme. I'm fully aware that you've been sneaking around with another woman while I was in the hospital. That's why I filed the notice ahead of time to prevent the divorce from going through. Didn't you know that? I had learned all of this from a certain lawyer. That lawyer was none other than James. The day James was discharged, he told me everything. While I was in rehab and out of my room, Thomas and Lisa had visited my hospital room. By chance, James had also come to see me at that time. James was about to leave when he overheard a suspicious conversation between Thomas and Lisa.
Is Emily not here?
Looks like it. Well, there's no point in staying. Let's go.
They were looking around nervously, and then started whispering.
I was planning to bring up the divorce, though.
It's perfect timing now that Thomas has found a young woman who suits him better than that old, infertile Emily.
Lisa said with a laugh, and Thomas nodded in agreement.
Exactly. Kate's pregnant, so Emily's out of the picture. We need to get her out of here as soon as possible.
Let's kick her out as soon as she's discharged. We should start packing up her stuff from your house.
Good idea. That way, she'll have to leave right away. We're so thoughtful.
James was shocked when he heard this horrifying conversation. He agonized over whether or not to tell me, but he ultimately decided it was better for me to know beforehand than to come home to such a terrible surprise.
I'm so sorry you had to hear this. I know it's not something you wanted to hear.
James apologized to me over and over, but I reassured him, "Don't worry about it." Even though I was shocked, I felt a strange sense of clarity. Now it made sense why Thomas never visited me. In their minds, they had already written me off. If that's how they felt, then I had no reason to care anymore. The time I had spent agonizing over fertility treatments and their nasty comments felt like a distant memory, and I felt surprisingly calm. But James still looked troubled. He then pulled out a business card from his pocket.
This is my contact information. If you need anything, please feel free to reach out.
The card had the name and number of a law office. It read, James Smith, attorney at law. Yes, James was a lawyer. After that, I discussed everything with my mom. My mom, who knew nothing, stood there in disbelief, completely stunned.
Thomas did that?
It's a shock, isn't it? But part of me always suspected there might be someone else. It's strange that he never visited me, especially after such a serious accident. And considering his recent behavior, I want to know the truth. Mom, I'm sorry, but could you help me? I couldn't afford to be afraid anymore. I needed to take action and gather evidence. My mom and I made a plan. While I was still in the hospital, she went to check on the apartment where Thomas was living. That's when she spotted a young woman coming and going from the apartment with Thomas. The woman was young, flashy, and seemed very close to Thomas. She was holding a childbirth class pamphlet in her hand. When I saw the photos my mom had taken, it was clear to anyone that they looked like a couple. It turned out that James was telling the truth. Thomas really planned to marry this woman and leave me behind. Instead of getting angry, I felt a strange calmness wash over me. Now that I knew the truth, there was no need to hold back. I decided it was time to make Thomas and the others face the consequences. I pulled out the photos I had as evidence and showed them right in front of the three of them. The color drained from their faces. So, as you can see, you can't just go ahead with the divorce. Got it? Thomas, perhaps misinterpreting my words to suit his own narrative, spoke confidently.
I see. So deep down, you don't actually want a divorce, huh? Too bad. But my feelings for you are long gone. Just accept it and move on.
So that's what he comes up with. Such ridiculous arrogance. I had to fight hard to hold back my laughter. What an idiot. I couldn't care less about you anymore. What I'm concerned about is whether that promise is going to be kept, specifically whether you're going to pay me back the money you owe. Thomas's face turned pale.
Hey, don't bring that up here.
What do you mean, that?
Lisa immediately started questioning Thomas. Kate, His mistress looked completely bewildered, as if she had no idea what was going on. Before we got married, Thomas and I had made a certain agreement. This guy was addicted to gambling when we were dating. He had a ton of debt, but he promised me he'd work hard to pay it off, so I covered his debts and married him. Thomas begged me, "Please don't tell my parents. It's too embarrassing." So I kept quiet until now. We agreed that he'd pay me back little by little every month, but he hasn't finished paying me back yet. That's why I'm not agreeing to a divorce until I get all my money back. As I laid it all out, Thomas's face turned from pale to utterly hopeless. Of course, I had a signed IOU to back up my claims. There was no way he could talk his way out of this. Lisa, seeing the look on Thomas's face, lost her composure.
Gambling? You haven't learned your lesson yet? And now you've racked up more debt.
I had heard before that Thomas had been hooked on gambling since his college days. Back then, it was Lisa who had covered his debts. Thomas had sworn to his parents that he'd never gamble again. That's why he couldn't let them find out, so he borrowed money from me instead.
What? More debt? Thomas, you told me you had plenty of money. You bragged about it all the time.
Kate started to get hysterical as well. At that point, all hell broke loose. The three of them were nearly losing their minds, shouting and blaming each other at the top of their lungs. Seeing that things had spiraled out of control, I told them, "Thanks for packing up my stuff. It saved me a lot of trouble. I'm leaving this house and going back to my parents'. If you want the divorce to go through quickly, you better pay up in full." With that, my mom and I began moving my things to the front door. We called a taxi and left the scene. When we got back to my parents' house, my dad welcomed us. But when he heard what had happened, he was furious.
I never thought Thomas could be such a scumbag. He's the worst kind of person.
It was only natural that anyone hearing this story would get angry. We had to stop my dad from storming over to Thomas's place, yelling that he would settle things directly. A week later, I got a message on my phone. It was from Thomas. He said he wanted to talk about the debt, so we arranged a meeting with him, Lisa, and Kate. The designated meeting place was a nearby cafe. I arrived early and waited, and soon the three of them walked in. They all looked remarkably defiant. When Thomas saw the person sitting next to me, he muttered suspiciously,
"Who's this guy?"
Before I could answer, James, sitting beside me, spoke up.
"Nice to meet you. I'm James Smith, an attorney."
James handed them his business card, and I could see their expressions visibly shrink. I figured we'd need someone impartial for this discussion, so I brought him along. It's better to have a third party involved, don't you think? I said this firmly, and the three of them looked uncomfortable. They clearly didn't want anyone else to see them in such an embarrassing situation. Ignoring their discomfort, I continued. "So, are you going to pay me the money you owe?" Lisa spoke up, her face twisted in frustration.
Well, there's no other choice. Thomas doesn't have the money, so I'll pay for it.
When I looked at Thomas, he had shrunk down, looking utterly defeated. It wasn't surprising that he had no money. He had never been the type to save. Even after we got married, he only managed to pay me back a little bit each month, around $100 at most. And once we started the fertility treatments, those payments became even less frequent. Lisa said she would transfer the full amount into my account. I then placed the completed divorce papers on the table. I've already signed my part. Now, you just need to sign yours. Once I confirm the money is in my account, I'll file these. Thomas looked at me with a nervous expression.
So, you'll divorce me after that?
Yes. I answered him flatly.
Then that means all of Thomas's debts are cleared. And there's nothing stopping us from getting married now.
Kate said with a smile on her face. Of course, this wasn't the end of it. What I said next would throw them into complete despair. I must say, Thomas, you're quite something. Planning to raise a child that's not even yours.
What do you mean by that?
Thomas looked confused, while Kate's face began to pale.
What are you talking about?
Kate was clearly panicking. Seeing this, I couldn't help but smile smugly. I had already looked into Kate's identity. Kate worked at a nightclub. I had tracked down her social media accounts. According to what I found, it seems that Thomas met Kate when he visited her workplace. In her posts, she naively wrote things like, "We're getting married soon." But that wasn't the important part. I had also found her secret account. On it, she wrote, "The baby I'm carrying isn't actually my fiance's. It's from another customer." It seemed that the customer didn't have money. And since she didn't want to deal with someone poor, she decided to pass off the baby as belonging to a wealthy client and marry him instead. That wealthy client was Thomas. Thomas often bragged to others that his family ran a construction business and that he had money. It's no wonder Kate was under that impression. Basically, Kate had been planning to deceive Thomas, making him believe that the baby was his and marrying him for his money. When Thomas realized the truth, he was visibly shaken.
Kate, is this true?
Well, it's...
Kate fell silent. Then Lisa jumped into the fray.
Kate, what do you mean by this? You said you were going to have Thomas's child. That's why I agreed to this marriage.
Kate mumbled a weak excuse, but it was obvious she was lying. The three of them quickly descended into a state of paranoia, pointing fingers at each other. It was pathetic. I was completely disgusted. Lisa, still red with anger, shouted at the top of her lungs.
I allowed Thomas to marry a younger woman like Kate for the sake of the company's future, and I even agreed to pay off his debt. If the baby isn't Thomas's, then this is outright fraud. Kate, you'd better explain yourself.
Kate looked down and trembled. Amidst the chaos, I quietly said, "Well, Kate, I do think what you did was awful, but Lisa, you're in no position to criticize anyone, are you?"
What are you talking about?
Lisa, caught off guard, snapped back at me. I calmly pulled out a photo from my bag. The moment she saw it, Lisa's face froze. The photo showed Lisa arm in arm with an older man who wasn't her husband. They were just about to enter a hotel together, looking quite cozy.
What is this? Mom, what's going on?
Now it was Thomas's turn to interrogate his mom.
This is, well...
As it turns out, Lisa was also having an affair. The man was someone she had met through her ballroom dancing hobby, and they had been seeing each other for years. This came to light while I was investigating Thomas's behavior, and the information just fell into my lap. In short, they all had skeletons in their closets. The three of them began hurling ugly accusations at each other.
How could you, Mom? Cheating on Dad with another man.
Don't you dare judge me. This is all because of your gambling debts in the first place.
Kate jumped in to defend herself.
You're both terrible. Thomas, you hid your debt from me, and Lisa, you have no right to lecture me.
Oh, please, Kate. Trying to pass off another man's child as mine? That's beyond disgraceful.
It was complete chaos. I tried to get them to calm down, but my words fell on deaf ears. Just then, James, who had been silent until now, placed 2 documents on the table. For a moment, everyone stopped.
Let's save the name calling for later. I'm here today for one reason, to present you with a formal claim for damages. Infidelity during a marriage is considered a serious breach of trust. These documents are addressed to both Thomas and Kate. Please make sure the payment is made by the deadline.
The 3 of them stared at the documents, where the compensation amounts were clearly listed.
What is this?
Thomas's face crumbled in despair. Of course, this is separate from the debt you owe me. Naturally, I'm also claiming compensation for the emotional distress you've caused. With a strained voice, Lisa spoke to me as I smiled.
You greedy witch.
Excuse me? I'm just exercising my rightful claims. James backed me up.
If you fail to pay, we will take this matter to court. Based on legal precedents, it's highly likely that you will lose.
Lisa hung her head. Thomas and Kate were scowling in frustration. Once I confirm the money has been paid, I'll agree to the divorce. Looking forward to your cooperation. With that, I left the cafe with James by my side.
That must have been tough, dealing with people like that,
James said, offering me some comforting words. Yeah, it really was. I replied with a bittersweet smile. The following week, I checked my account and found that the money had been deposited. The remaining amount of the debt I had covered for Thomas, the alimony from Thomas, and the alimony from Kate. All the deposits were made under Lisa's name. She probably had no choice but to pay up since those 2 didn't have any money. What a hassle for her. After that, I submitted the divorce papers. And just like that, I was officially single again. I'll never have to see Thomas or Lisa again. I no longer have to endure those painful fertility treatments either. Gradually, I began to regain my strength. Later, I heard through acquaintances that Thomas and Kate had broken up. Thomas reportedly said, "I'm not raising another man's kid." And Kate retorted, "I'm not marrying someone with debt," before walking out. As for Lisa, after her affair was exposed, her husband served her with divorce papers too. She and Thomas were thrown out of the house and are now apparently living in miserable conditions. They got exactly what they deserved. I couldn't feel an ounce of sympathy for them. As for me, I returned to my old life. The only difference was that, after staying with my parents for a while, I moved into a new apartment since my job was too far from their house. And one more thing. Since then, I've been going out to eat with James from time to time. After losing his wife, James had stopped going out much outside of work. It seemed it had been a long time since he had shared a meal with anyone.
These days, my coworkers often tell me I've become more cheerful.
Same here. It's like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I think it's thanks to you, James, I said with a smile. James waved his hand modestly.
Oh, I didn't do much, but if anything else comes up, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd like to be there for you, Emily. This time, not just for work.
James said this while looking a bit shy. Wait, does that mean? My heart started racing as I looked at James. Seeing his face, a warm feeling spread through my chest. It had been a long time since I felt this way. It was a strange mix of happiness and a bit of nervous excitement. I couldn't help but smile, and James and I shared a laugh together.
So my eldest son, his wife, and their 3 kids are moving in with us. Can you believe it?
I had just bought our dream house with a yard in Hawaii, thinking we could finally live the good life. But then my husband dropped this bomb on me. I was stunned by his words. As long as my husband and our eldest son's family are around, I won't be able to live my own life to the fullest. Memories of the terrible treatment I've endured from them flooded my mind. And finally, I made up my mind to fight back. From that moment on, I secretly prepared for retaliation, waiting for the day of the long-awaited move. When I checked my phone, I saw dozens of missed calls from my husband at our Hawaii house.
Hey, you finally answered. Where are you now? How many times do you think I've called? Everyone's mad and waiting.
I could hear the urgency in my husband's voice, but I remained calm. Oh, I thought you all were having a blast without me. You can have that house. I'm not coming back, so you all better work it out together from now on. I said that, but my husband wasn't backing down easily. He's insisting I come back.
And we can't even use electricity or water. What the heck is going on?
You're just realizing that now.
Geez, don't mess around. Come back right now.
I couldn't stop laughing hearing my husband's furious voice. It's a shame to let go of the house in Hawaii we just bought, but if I think about exchanging it for a comfortable life, well, I guess it's okay. Those people, you can't do anything without me, must be in a panic by now. Just imagining it makes me chuckle. Considering how much my eldest son's family and my husband have put me through, this level of retaliation should be acceptable. I'm Emily Johnson. I'm turning 60 this year. I may not have any special talents, but I've lived my life diligently. To earn some extra cash, I work part-time at the pharmacy 3 days a week. My husband, Andrew, and I are living together since he retired last year. He's like a stereotypical husband, always meddling in everything but incapable of doing anything on his own. We have 2 sons. The eldest son is Logan, and the younger one, Matthew. Logan has always been good at sports since he was a kid. My husband doted on him because of his athleticism, spoiling him rotten. As a result, Logan grew up to be quite arrogant. He couldn't study at all, but he got into high school on a baseball scholarship and graduated. After that, he started working at a local car factory. At the age of 22, he got his girlfriend pregnant, and they had a shotgun wedding. His wife, Amy, seems to regret getting pregnant and married against her will. She still complains a lot about it, but strangely, she had 2 more kids right after that. She seems uninterested in working and stays at home as a full-time housewife, and she's not good at cooking, so she often comes over to our place for meals. They live in an apartment in our neighborhood as a family of 5. And our second son, Matthew, was the opposite of Logan. He was not good at sports, but he loved studying. He was always top of his class in elementary school, a thoughtful and kind kid. However, it seemed like my husband didn't like a quiet Matthew. as he didn't contribute to Matthew's education expenses. So, I had to dip into my savings to cover his education costs. But Matthew, being considerate of me, opted for scholarships when going to college and graduate school. I'm proud of Matthew for that, but my husband couldn't care less. After graduating from graduate school, Matthew got a job at a major company and married his girlfriend from college a few years later. His wife, Lily, is smart and hardworking. Even after having a child, she still works full-time. Just when I thought the burden of raising our 2 sons was lifted as they started their own families, I realized I'll have to take care of my retired husband for decades to come, which felt daunting. And then, one day, I got a call from my eldest son's wife, Amy.
Hi, Emily. I want to go out with my friends tomorrow, so could you keep my children?
Here we go again, I thought. Amy always calls out of the blue asking me to babysit. Lately, just hearing Amy's sickly sweet voice gives me the creeps. Sorry, but I've got work tomorrow. If you'd told me earlier, I could have taken the day off.
But Emily, ain't your job just a part-time? And you can even take care of your adorable grandkids for a bit? Come on, take the day off.
I can't just do that. I can't bother my coworkers.
Well, I can't bother my friends either. So, I'll drop the kids off at your place at 9 a.m. tomorrow, okay?
With that, she hung up. I let out a heavy sigh. There's no stopping Amy now. She'll definitely dump her 3 kids on me tomorrow. My kindergarten-aged eldest grandson, my preschooler granddaughter, and my newborn granddaughter from last year. Taking care of 3 grandchildren is tough. I consulted my husband about it. Hey, Amy wants me to watch the kids tomorrow. I've got work, so can you take care of them for me?
What are you talking about? Taking care of kids is a woman's job. Skip work.
My husband, despite doting on our grandchildren from Logan, can't handle them on his own. He leaves the diaper changes and meal prep to me, while he watches TV with the grandkids, giving them snacks as they please. He just enjoys the fun parts. It's my job to scold the grandkids when they misbehave, so they dislike me and favor my husband, who spoils them. Amy and Logan are both indifferent to discipline and education, so the kids run wild. It honestly sucks to babysit grandchildren who can't follow basic manners. But if we let them grow up like this, it'll be irreversible. So I'm resigned to being the bad guy. With a heavy heart, I called in sick to work and apologized. One day, I got a call from Lily, my second son's wife. While Amy often calls, Lily usually emails unless it's urgent. I answered the phone, thinking it was unusual.
Hello, Emily. Is it okay to call you now?
Yeah, sure. What's up?
Your 60th birthday is coming up next month, so I thought we'd celebrate your milestone. Can Matthew, Emma, and I come visit you on the weekend around your birthday?
I never thought anyone remembered my birthday. Lily's proposal made me smile involuntarily. Well, do you remembered? That's so sweet of you. Of course, you're more than welcome to stay over.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that. I'll let you know when it gets closer. Oh, and on the day itself, we'll take care of everything like meals so you can fully enjoy yourself. Please relax on the day.
Normally, nobody pays any attention to me, so Lily's thoughtfulness was heartwarming. Matthew's family lives out of state, so they often stay over when they come to visit. Having guests can be a hassle, but Lily always brings extravagant gifts and insists on doing things like cleaning the bedroom and bathroom. Even though I tell her she doesn't have to, it's no burden at all. My granddaughter Emma is also well behaved and polite. She's so cute and such a good kid that I always look forward to seeing her. Anticipating the visit from Matthew's family, I persevered through my daily work, enduring Amy's selfishness and my husband's unreasonableness. And then, on the promised Saturday evening, as I waited, slightly more dressed up than usual, the doorbell rang. Thinking it was a bit earlier than the agreed time, I peered at the intercom screen in high spirits, only to find Logan's family there. Surprised, I asked my husband, "Why are Logan and the others here? Today is the day Matthew and his family are supposed to come."
Oh, I heard that Matthew's family was coming to celebrate your 60th birthday, so I thought I'd invite Logan as well. More people for a celebration is better, right?
Upon hearing those words, I was dumbfounded. Why did you invite them without asking? Lily has been planning and preparing so much, and if Logan and the others are here, everything will be chaotic. With that, my husband visibly became grumpy and retorted,
What's the deal? I went to the trouble of inviting them for you, and this is how you repay me. Stop being so selfish. Hurry up and let Logan's family in.
Amidst the argument with my husband, the door opened and Logan's family barged in. I had left the door unlocked, expecting Matthew's family to arrive. I wished I had kept it locked, but it was too late.
Hey there. We heard there's some delicious food here, so we came over.
Amy said, waltzing in empty-handed as usual. Logan plopped down on the couch and demanded a drink. The room, which I had meticulously cleaned, was instantly thrown into chaos by the children. I felt like crying. In my daze, the doorbell rang again. This time, it must be Matthew's family. I weakly opened the door. There stood Matthew holding a large bouquet of flowers, Lily with bags from the department store, and Emma looking adorable in her outfit. Oh, thank you all for coming.
Emily, what's wrong? You don't look so good.
Lily began to say, but before she could finish, Amy came and without a word of greeting, snatched the paper bag Lily was holding and peered inside.
Oh, it looks delicious. Wow, Matthew makes good money. We can't afford fancy stuff like this at our place. Well, thanks. I'll gladly take it.
With that, Amy hurried back into the house. Those of us left at the entrance were dumbfounded.
So, Amy was here too.
Yeah, my husband must have invited her. She showed up out of the blue earlier. I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. Even though the food prepared for Emily was taken, there's still cake left, so I'll hide it in the fridge for later and we can enjoy it then.
Thank you. As we entered the room, we saw Logan's family and my husband devouring the meal Lily had prepared.
Hey, we're running out of food here. Make something so Logan and the kids can eat their fill.
Sorry, it seems the kids were pretty hungry. And isn't this portion a bit small? There's no more for Emily and Matthew's family.
Seeing Amy laughing, Matthew and his family made bitter faces and said,
Well, that's right. We only prepared enough for Mom and us.
So, you're saying we're being excluded? That's so mean.
Come on, Amy, cut them some slack. It's Mom's birthday today. Don't we have cake or something?
Lily quickly hid the cake box she was holding behind her, but Logan noticed it promptly and marched over to snatch the box.
There it is. Come on, bring it out. Hey kids, it's cake time. Eat as much as you want.
All we could do was watch Logan's family do as they pleased. My husband and Logan helped themselves to alcohol from the fridge and started drinking. Lily and Matthew looked apologetic as they approached me.
Emily, we should have bought more. We're sorry.
No, I'm the one who should apologize. I can't believe this happened.
No, it's not Mom's or Lily's fault at all. How about we go out to eat somewhere now?
As we were talking, my husband shouted loudly at me.
Hey, come over here. Everyone's gathered for you today. What's the point if the guest of honor isn't here?
Emily, please stay there and relax. I'll use the kitchen. I'll make something quick.
No, it's okay. I have to go back. So just you all go out and have something delicious to eat. I didn't want to serve Matthew and his family, who came all the way from out of town, something simple.
Oh, we'll be fine. We came here today to celebrate you.
That's right. We'll just grab whatever's in the fridge, so Mom, don't worry about it.
That won't do. Go out and enjoy yourselves. There's not much in the fridge anyway. I'm really sorry. Then, Emma said something to cheer me up.
Grandma, how about this? We'll go buy some delicious bread, and tomorrow morning let's eat it together.
With that, Matthew's family went out for a while. Grateful to them, I returned to the living room, only to find it in a terrible state. My husband and Logan were busy drinking, while Amy lay sprawled out, munching on snacks she found in our house while looking at her phone. The kids were engrossed in video games, bouncing around on the sofa. On the table, there were just a few leftovers and the messed up cake. Why did this have to happen? I was truly saddened that my eagerly anticipated 60th birthday celebration had been ruined. However, tonight, Matthew's family was staying over. Tomorrow morning, I'd have a pleasant meal with Emma. As I tried to cheer myself up, Amy said something unbelievable.
We'll be staying over tonight, so please take care of us.
No way, Matthew's family is staying over tonight, so it's impossible.
If Matthew's family is staying, then we can too, right?
Despite living nearby, Amy's insistence on staying over was probably fueled by a competitive spirit towards Matthew's family. We don't have a room where a large number of people can stay.
We're fine with the sofa, and the kids can just use Emily's bed.
Oh, come on.
What's with you, Emily? You've been treating us like intruders since earlier. Is this discrimination?
Normally, I'd reluctantly accept Amy's selfishness, but this time, I didn't want to give in. I wanted to enjoy my time with Matthew's family. As I was about to retort against Amy, my husband finally spoke up loudly to me.
Enough. Our adorable grandchildren are staying over. Isn't that great? It seems like Matthew's family has already left. So today we'll host Logan's family.
Once it came to this, it was hopeless. My husband and Amy teamed up and wouldn't listen to me. Feeling bad about involving Matthew's family, I called Lily and explained the situation, and I asked them to return their home for today. Logan's family spent the night in our home, bustling around, and then left after finishing breakfast. What was my 60th birthday celebration all about, anyway? Tears welled up as I looked at the bouquet left by Matthew's family. I decided to avoid Logan's family as much as possible from now on. I had been avoiding them more than ever since then. I tried not to answer Amy's calls, but she would show up unannounced at our house regardless. Realizing that my body couldn't take it anymore, I decided to physically distance myself. So, I made a suggestion to my husband. Hey, honey, this house is getting old, and why don't we move to another property for a peaceful retirement?
Oh, that sounds good. Let's do it. I've always wanted to retire to Hawaii.
Things progressed smoothly from there. My husband found an old Hawaiian house. It's quite old, but it has a garden and is close to the sea. It might be a good property to live in after some renovations. One day, while we were gradually starting the preparations for the move, my husband said while looking at his phone,
Guess what? Logan's family, along with their 3 kids, are moving in with us.
What? I never agreed to that. What's going on?
I just got an email from Logan. They're going to live together with us. Isn't that great?
Surprised, I immediately called Logan. After listening to my urgent voice, Logan handed the phone to Amy.
Hi, Emily. It's Amy. I'm out right now. What's up?
What's up? Aren't you guys moving in? Contrary to my urgency, Amy replied in a relaxed tone.
Oh, that thing. Well, since it's inconvenient for just Andrew and Emily to live alone, we've decided to live together. You should be grateful.
I never asked for that.
Well, I've always dreamed of moving to Hawaii. Logan is enthusiastic about it too, and he's saying he'll quit his job. Since we're going together, be nice to us. If you resist, we won't take care of you in old age.
I was speechless. I thought Logan's family was determined to disrupt my comfortable life no matter what. Memories of their past behavior raced through my mind. It was then that I finally decided to fight back. Until the day we moved to Hawaii, I continued to live with my usual smile on my face. However, behind the scenes, I was arranging to rent a new apartment for living alone near Matthew's family. When I told them about the Hawaii incident, Lily made this proposal.
I've been thinking about this for a while, but would you like to live with us, Emily?
It was a kind offer, but I declined. I appreciate your offer, but I can't leave my husband behind.
Oh, really? Haven't you considered divorce?
I am considering divorce eventually, but I can't bother you at this point. I felt it would be unfair to involve Matthew's family in the divorce turmoil.
We want to do something nice for you, Emily. Matthew told us that you've been sacrificing yourself and working hard behind your family since his childhood. I also have a lot of respect for you.
Thank you for saying that.
At least, won't you consider living near our house? I'll look for a good place for you.
Lily's kindness touched my heart. Lily, thank you. Are you sure?
Yes, Matthew and Emma will be thrilled. It's still a long way off, but we'll take care of you in your old age, so it's okay to part ways with Andrew whenever.
I really think I hit the jackpot with such a good son and daughter-in-law. So, I prepared to send my belongings separately to the apartment Lily found for me. With this, the preparations for my retaliation were complete. I couldn't help but smile at the thought of the surprised faces of my husband and Logan's family. On the day we moved to Hawaii, we arrived at the airport and headed straight to the old house we had purchased. My husband and Logan's family were excited. Little did we know what kind of home awaited us.
starting a new life in Hawaii. So pumped.
Dad, you gotta support me with your savings until I find a job, alright? And hey, the inheritance is coming to me eventually, so it's all good, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Take your time finding a job. If you need anything, just ask your mom. We can chill for a while, man.
With revenge on my mind, I didn't even care about that conversation. After a few dozen minutes, we arrived home. It looked way more rundown than the photos, almost like it would fall apart in the next storm. The yard was overgrown with weeds. The roof had patches missing, and it looked like it would leak if not repaired soon.
What's this? This isn't what we saw in the pictures. Were we deceived?
We're supposed to live here. I really don't want to.
Seriously, what's going on?
While my husband, Amy, and the others were clearly feeling down, I was the only one who knew why. When my husband showed me this property for the first time, I felt something was off because the size of the land and the low price didn't add up. So I called the real estate agent. So, what I heard was that the photos were actually from a few years ago and hadn't been updated, and that's why this house is so cheap. It's not in livable condition, so it's hard to find a buyer locally. I deliberately kept this information to myself. I figured there was no way my husband would listen to me even if I advised him that the property he found was bad. Looking back now, that decision was the right one. It was hilarious to see my husband, who believed he was always right and never doubted himself, so surprised and dumbfounded that his jaw practically dropped. As soon as we entered the house, the moving boxes we had requested arrived.
This house is kinda different from what I was expecting.
Yay, well. Let's just think of it as an opportunity to renovate and make it comfortable for ourselves. If we look at it that way, it might be fun, you know.
My husband seemed like he was trying to convince himself.
Yeah, I guess so.
I'm exhausted today, so let's unpack tomorrow. Mom, can you make lunch?
Amy, who had been complaining, perked up at Logan's mention of lunch and seemed to regain her spirits.
I want Hawaiian food, like loco moco.
That sounds great. And don't forget to grab some Kohana rum.
With that, my husband and Logan's family were relaxing leisurely. The grandchildren were busy exploring the new house, running around excitedly. I pretended to go shopping and hailed a taxi nearby, heading back to the airport. Since there was some time until the scheduled flight I had booked, I enjoyed shopping at the airport and bought a bunch of souvenirs for Matthew's family. By the time I arrived at the new apartment, it was already quite late at night. After hours of having my phone turned off, I finally checked it. To my surprise, I had dozens of missed calls from my husband. Come to think of it, I'm the one who has the bank cards, credit cards, cash, and all that stuff with me, so they must be struggling without any money right now. Also, I haven't arranged contracts for essential utilities like electricity, gas, and water. My husband and Logan's family probably didn't even think about it, assuming I had taken care of it beforehand. As I debated whether to call back or not with a sigh, my husband's call came in at just the right moment.
Hey, you finally picked up the phone. Where are you right now? How many times do you think I've called you? Everyone's furious and waiting.
I could hear the urgency in his voice, but I responded calmly. Oh, I thought everyone was having fun without me. I'll give you guys that house. I'm not coming back anymore, so from now on, you all have to manage without me.
What are you talking about? What about our meals? We haven't eaten anything since noon.
You're more worried about your food than my concerns at a time like this.
Of course.
With my husband's words, my decision was made. I'll definitely divorce him. But for now, I'll endure because there are still things I need to do.
And we can't even use electricity or water. What's going on?
You just noticed now.
Don't mess around. Come back right now.
Hearing my husband's furious voice, I couldn't stop laughing. No, I'm never coming back again.
What? Do you think something like this can be forgiven?
I'm not expecting any forgiveness. My husband, always boasting despite being useless. Amy, selfish and all talk. Logan, the lazy one, and the unruly kids. How are we going to live in that rundown house with just those people? I refuse to be manipulated by you and Logan's family's selfishness anymore. I'm going to live my own life from now on. Good luck taking care of your beloved son and grandkids. With that, I hung up the phone and powered it off. I must have been really tired that day because I slept soundly. The next day, I woke up to the refreshing morning sun. Looking around at the spacious bed, the furniture I chose, and the clean, newly built room, my heart swelled with excitement as I realized my new life had begun. As I was about to prepare breakfast and make some tea I had ordered for this day, the doorbell rang. Opening the door, Lily and Emma were standing there.
Emily, sorry to bother you so early. We were wondering how your new life is going.
Grandma, I brought some bread. Let's eat together.
Oh my, I'm so glad you dropped by. This room is so comfortable. Thank you for finding such a nice place for me. Come on in. I just made some tea. While drinking tea with Lily, I briefed her on what happened yesterday.
It went well, didn't it? It's great that Emily is free from those arrogant people.
Thanks for your help. I feel relieved.
Emily, you're not done yet. You need to teach Andrew and the others a lesson so they never dare to speak to you like that again. Keep your schedule open for this Saturday. I'll bring them over.
Lily said with a smirk. Ignoring calls from my husband and Logan's family for a few days, Saturday, the promised day, arrived. As Lily instructed, I waited at home, and soon enough, my husband and Amy arrived, led by Lily. My husband and Amy walked into the house without hesitation and sat on the new sofa without asking.
Just when we got a call from Lily. What's with this house?
You were all alone here. That's not fair. Because Emily isn't here, we're living a terrible life. We don't eat proper meals, and the house is dirty. Look, we're completely out of money. And how is it possible that there's no electricity or water running? Why didn't you handle the contracts?
As the two of them continued to make a fuss, Lily interjected sharply.
That's enough. Seriously, why don't you try handling things like cooking meals and setting up utilities yourself? Emily isn't your housekeeper.
Who asked you to butt in all of a sudden?
Yeah. Did you put her up to this?
Taking a step back and looking at the situation objectively, both my husband and Amy were really selfish people. And now Lily was on my side. There's no better time than now to bring up divorce. I felt a sense of liberation. Please divorce me, I said, and my husband, who had been making all the noise until now, suddenly stopped in his tracks, eyes wide in surprise.
What are you saying? Who do you think has been supporting you all this time?
Emily, what's gotten into you all of a sudden?
It's not sudden at all. I've been considering divorce from you for a long time. I don't want to breathe the same air as you for even a moment anymore.
What are you talking about?
I handed the divorce papers with my name and seal on them to my husband. There's no way this is a joke. You're done in my life.
You don't joke around like that.
He shouted and tore up the divorce papers. But that was expected. I handed him another set of divorce papers that I had prepared in advance. Tearing those up is pointless. I have several others prepared just like these.
What's going on? How do you plan to live without me? Can you even afford the rent and living expenses for this place? If you apologize now, I might forgive you.
He thinks that if he yells, I will be under his thumb. Lily chuckled and said,
Andrew, don't you know that Emily has enough savings to stand on her own?
No way.
Emily, you've only been working part-time, so you can't possibly have any savings, right?
I have a pharmacist qualification. I used to earn more than double the regular hourly wage, even if it was part-time. After decades of saving, I've accumulated more than enough to live on my own. Way more than enough. Yes, I've been working steadily as a pharmacist. My husband has no idea about the money I've diligently saved.
Pharmacists are in high demand, so finding another job would be a piece of cake.
Really? You earn that much?
I'll live comfortably in this house. Why don't you all hurry back to Hawaii? After all, you left Logan and the kids behind, didn't you?
I don't want to go back. I want to live here. I thought I could live because Emily does all the housework and has money. But Andrew is useless for anything.
What did you say? Don't mess around.
Amy, you're saying a little too much.
Well, she's right though.
Lily and I burst into laughter. Amy is clinging to me and crying. Finally, it seemed like my husband understood his position. He bowed his head, biting his lip, and said,
We can't make it without you. Please come back.
And that's why I've said it so many times. No way.
Please, come back.
It's pointless to talk. I'll send the divorce papers to your house in Hawaii later. Well then, I'll enjoy a nice cup of tea with Lily, so you guys better head back soon. Though my husband and Amy seemed to protest something, when I mentioned calling the police, they reluctantly left.
Wow, Emily, you were so cool. And the way Andrew panicked, it's hilarious.
I feel so relieved to finally say what I've been thinking for years. Thank you for having my back, Lily.
Oh, don't mention it. I just wanted to help after hearing about you from Matthew.
Then, Lily shared with me what she heard from Matthew. It seemed Matthew had always felt inferior to his brother Logan and struggled with feeling weak. Actually, my husband seemed indifferent towards Matthew and sometimes treated him harshly, and Logan also looked down on Matthew. Despite that, as a mother, I was always on Matthew's side, and thanks to always treating him kindly, we managed to avoid any major conflicts, he said. Also, he knew that I had been quietly using the money I earned to cover Matthew's education expenses without telling my husband. He had apparently been saying since they got married that he wanted to repay his mother someday. And Lily herself seeing how hard-working and devoted I was to the family, had wanted to help me for a long time. She saw this as the perfect opportunity to do so and decided to lend a hand. Oh, I see. I should thank both of them.
No, it's because of Emily's actions that we wanted to help. We actually wished you would live with us.
It seems Lily had seriously considered having me live with them. I appreciate you saying that.
If you ever feel like living together in the future, just let me know. Also, if you're seriously considering divorce, I have a college friend who is a lawyer. Shall I introduce you? I think he'll give you a good deal.
That's great. I'm saved. Don't need that kind of husband anymore.
Yeah, right. Let's just cut ties cleanly.
Afterward, I divorced my husband through the lawyer Lily introduced me to. Although my husband kept insisting he didn't want to part ways, he finally gave in after the lawyer firmly told him off. I initially thought I didn't need any asset division if we could part ways quickly, but Lily scolded me, saying, "You should take as much as you can." Following her advice, I ended up getting more money than expected. With this, I can live luxuriously from now on, and even leave an inheritance for Matthew's family. In the end, my ex-husband and Logan's family sold the house in Hawaii. Well, that's no surprise. There's probably no money left for renovations. Logan's family returned to their old cheap apartment, and it seems my ex-husband moved in there. Logan seemed to have relied on my ex-husband's savings, but with the division of assets, his savings must have dwindled quickly with 6 people. Amy, who had been saying she didn't want to work, finally seems to have started a part-time job after all. My ex-husband and Logan's family, who are in financial trouble, are constantly fighting, and Matthew said they've been coming to Matthew's family begging for money. Of course, it seems Matthew's family turned them away at the door. After that, my ex-husband and Logan's family also came to my place.
You're the only one I need. Please, let's start over.
Mom, we were wrong.
Emily, I'm so sorry. We can't afford the rent this month. Can you lend us some money, just a little bit?
They come begging in such a pitiful state, so I sometimes oblige when I'm in a good mood. I couldn't work freely before because my ex-husband forbid it, but now I can work about 5 days a week as I like. With the money I earn, I can afford slightly higher quality ingredients for our meals every day. Also, since Matthew's family lives nearby now, Lily and Emma often come to visit. Matthew's family came to my house on weekends, and it became routine for the 4 of us to eat together. They all seem to enjoy the food I cook, so it's really fulfilling. Being praised for my cooking skills makes me happy, so I've recently decided to improve further by attending cooking classes. I've made friends for the first time in decades at the class, and we enjoy going out for lunch together and having a chat on weekends. When I'm baking cookies with Emma or leisurely enjoying my hobby of reading, I can feel a peaceful happiness that I've never felt before. Instead of my husband and Logan's family, I've gained a deep connection with Matthew's family and a new life. Taking bold action has truly been a good decision.